What if I told you that deep within your skull, behind your eyes and your modern civilized thoughts, lives a creature from a bygone age? What if I told you that this creature is millions of years old, that it is powerful, fast, and that it is making decisions for you every single day without your permission? And what if I told you that this ancient creature, this ghost in your machine, cannot tell the difference between a life-threatening predator and an email from your boss? Take a moment. Think back to the last time you felt true, gut-wrenching pressure. Perhaps it was the chime of a notification on your phone, announcing a message you were dreading. Maybe it was the moment you stepped into a meeting where you knew you would be challenged. It could have been the simple act of looking at your to-do list and feeling the weight of a dozen deadlines crashing down on you at once. Now, recall the physical sensation. Can you feel it? The subtle, or not so subtle, shift in your body. Your heart, suddenly a little too loud in your chest, beating a frantic rhythm against your ribs. Your breath, catching high in your throat, becoming shallow and quick. Perhaps a cold clenching in your stomach, a tightness in your jaw, or a tension across your shoulders that feels like you're bracing for a physical blow. Your focus narrows, the world fades into a peripheral blur, and the source of your pressure becomes the only thing in existence. In that moment, you weren't just stressed. You were hijacked. Your body, your entire biological system, was reacting as if your life was in immediate mortal danger. And the great, frustrating paradox of modern life is that this feeling, this primal state of emergency, is being triggered not by predators in the wild, but by spreadsheets, by traffic, by arguments, by expectations. If you have ever felt overwhelmed by this reaction, if you have ever berated yourself for being too anxious, too reactive, or too emotional under pressure, then the next few minutes will be a revelation. Because what you're experiencing is not a personal failure. It is not a weakness of character or a flaw in your willpower. It is, in fact, a design feature. Your brain is operating perfectly. It is executing a brilliant, ancient, and highly effective survival program. The only problem is that this program was written for a world that no longer exists. You are running Stone Age software on 21st century hardware, and the mismatch is tearing you apart. This book is your guide to rewriting that code. It is your manual for taking control of that ancient system and transforming its raw, panicked energy into a focused, unstoppable force. You are about to learn that the very storm of pressure that threatens to drown you is the source of your greatest power. But first, you must come face to face with the ghost in your machine. You must understand the saber-toothed tiger that lurks in your inbox. To understand why a digital notification can feel like a physical threat, we need to travel back in time. Not just a few decades, but hundreds of thousands, even millions of years, to the environment in which the human brain was forged. Our ancestors lived in a world of immediate, tangible dangers. The rustle in the tall grass was not a cause for abstract worry. It was a potential predator. The shadow in the distance was not a symbol of corporate restructuring. It was a rival tribe. Survival depended on one thing above all others: speed. The ability to react instantaneously to a threat was the single greatest determinant of whether you lived long enough to pass on your genes. There was no time for careful deliberation, for weighing pros and cons, or for nuanced consideration when a tiger leapt from the bushes. The hominid who paused to reflect, "Is that a large carnivorous feline or simply the wind playing tricks on my eyes?" did not become your ancestor. Your ancestors were the ones who saw a flicker of orange and black and were already sprinting in the opposite direction before their conscious mind even had a chance to label the threat. Their survival, and therefore your very existence, is a testament to a brutally efficient internal security system. Think of your brain not as one single entity, but as a layered structure built up over eons of evolution. The most modern part, the crowning glory of human development, is the neocortex, particularly the prefrontal cortex, located right behind your forehead. This is the you think of as you. It's the CEO of your brain, rational, analytical, capable of long-term planning, abstract thought, and regulating your impulses. It is the part of your brain reading and understanding these words right now. But buried beneath this sophisticated modern layer are older, more primitive structures. Deep in the temporal lobes is a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. The word itself comes from the Greek word for almond, but do not let its small size fool you. The amygdala is not your brain's CEO. It is your brain's panic button. It is the chief of your internal security, the hypersensitive hair-trigger sentinel that stands guard 24/7. And its job is not to think. Its job is to react. The amygdala is a core component of your limbic system, the brain's emotional center. This system evolved long before the rational prefrontal cortex. It is the part of the brain that governs fundamental survival instincts, fear, aggression, pleasure, and the drive to seek safety. Its prime directive is simple: keep you alive. And its primary tool is the fight or flight response. In the ancestral environment, this system was a masterpiece of biological engineering. When your ancestors' eyes detected a potential threat, that sensory information traveled to their brain. A portion of that signal went the high road, a slightly slower route to the prefrontal cortex for careful analysis. But a faster, cruder version of that signal took the low road, a neural shortcut that went directly to the amygdala. Before the CEO in the prefrontal cortex could even finish reading the memo about a possible threat, the security chief in the amygdala had already seen the blurry black-and-white CCTV footage and slammed the panic button. It didn't wait for confirmation. It didn't care about nuance. All it saw was a pattern that matched its database of danger. And it initiated a total system lockdown and emergency mobilization. Hesitation to the amygdala is death. This is the critical mismatch of our modern world. The threats have changed, but the alarm system has not. The amygdala's database of dangers has been updated to include things our ancestors could never have conceived of: a looming deadline, a critical performance review, an overdrawn bank account, a vague and passive-aggressive text message, an angry comment on a social media post. To your ancient, emotional brain, these are all saber-toothed tigers. Your amygdala cannot differentiate between the threat of social rejection and the threat of physical annihilation. The pattern is the same: danger. And so, the panic button gets pushed over and over and over again, every single day. This isn't a metaphor. It is a profound biological event. When that button is pushed, it triggers a chain reaction known as the amygdala hijack. This is the neurological source of that feeling of being overwhelmed, of losing control under pressure. It is a temporary coup, a mutiny in which the brain's ancient security guard seizes control from the rational CEO, convinced that the entire corporation is under imminent attack. Understanding this process isn't just an interesting piece of trivia, it is the key to reclaiming your own mind. Let's dissect this hijack in high definition, second by agonizing second. It begins with a trigger. The trigger can be external, the sound of your boss's sharp tone, the sight of an overflowing inbox, or internal, a memory of a past failure, a worry about a future event. It doesn't matter. Once the amygdala perceives this trigger as a threat, it sends an emergency distress signal directly to the hypothalamus, which you can think of as the operational control center for your entire body. The prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, is largely bypassed in this initial stage. The amygdala has a neural superhighway to the control center, while the prefrontal cortex is stuck on a scenic backroad. This is why your emotional reaction to a stressful event often happens faster than your rational understanding of it. You feel the anger, the fear, or the panic before you can even articulate why. Once the hypothalamus receives the alarm signal from the amygdala, it flips a master switch, activating two critical systems: the sympathetic nervous system, and the adrenal cortical system. This is the moment your body is put on a war footing. First, the sympathetic nervous system. This is your body's accelerator pedal. It triggers the adrenal glands to flood your bloodstream with a potent cocktail of hormones, most notably adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. This is the shock and awe phase of the stress response. Within seconds, adrenaline works its dramatic magic. Your heart rate skyrockets, pumping blood with tremendous force to your major muscle groups, your legs, your arms, your shoulders, preparing you for violent physical exertion. Your breathing becomes rapid and shallow, a desperate attempt to hyperoxygenate that blood for maximum performance. Your pupils dilate, and your vision narrows into a tight threat focus, sharpening your attention on the perceived danger while everything else melts away. This is why, under extreme pressure, you can lose track of your surroundings or the passage of time. Your liver, meanwhile, begins to dump glucose, pure energy, into your bloodstream, providing instant fuel for your muscles. Blood is shunted away from non-essential functions. Your digestive system slows down, which is why chronic stress often leads to stomach issues. Your immune response is temporarily suppressed. Healing and long-term maintenance are luxuries you can't afford when you're fighting for your life. Every available resource is diverted to the immediate crisis. Fight the tiger or flee from it. While adrenaline is orchestrating this instant explosive response, the second system comes online. The hypothalamus releases a hormone that tells the pituitary gland to release another hormone, which in turn travels to the outer part of the adrenal glands and signals them to release cortisol. If adrenaline is the sprinting fuel, cortisol is the marathon fuel. It's the long-haul stress hormone designed to keep your entire system on high alert for an extended period. Cortisol sustains the state of arousal, ensuring you stay vigilant and energized until the threat has passed. In the short-term, acute crises our ancestors faced, this was incredibly useful. But our modern crises aren't short-term. The tiger of a toxic work project doesn't get resolved in a 10-minute burst of sprinting. It lasts for weeks, months. The financial pressure doesn't disappear after a single confrontation. It's a chronic, low-grade hum of anxiety. The result is that our bodies are continuously marinated in cortisol. And this is where the system designed to save us begins to systematically destroy us. Chronically elevated cortisol is a poison. It wreaks havoc on your body, contributing to high blood pressure, insulin resistance, and weight gain, particularly around the abdomen. It damages immune cells, leaving you more vulnerable to illness. But its most insidious effect is what it does back inside your brain. Here is the final, brutal step of the amygdala hijack, the cognitive shutdown. The very chemical, cortisol, that is meant to keep you alert in a crisis has a profoundly negative effect on the one part of your brain you need most to solve complex modern problems, your prefrontal cortex. High levels of cortisol impair the function of the CEO. It disrupts the neural networks responsible for clear thinking, emotional regulation, working memory, and impulse control. Think about it. When you are under immense pressure, do you make your best, most creative, and most well-thought-out decisions? Or do you become reactive, short-tempered, and prone to black-and-white thinking? You can't find the right words in an argument. You forget a key point in a presentation. You snap at a loved one for something trivial. This isn't you failing. This is your biology working against you. The security guard, amygdala, has not only locked the CEO, prefrontal cortex, out of the building, it has also flooded the executive offices with a neurochemical that makes it nearly impossible to think straight. You are, in that moment, biologically less intelligent. The hijack is complete. You are no longer in control. Your ancient programming is. Now, reading this, you might feel a sense of despair. You might feel like you're locked in a battle with a primal force inside your own head, a battle you are destined to lose. But I want you to discard that thought immediately. This knowledge is not a condemnation, it is an emancipation. Because you cannot change a mechanism you do not understand. You cannot fix an engine without first looking under the hood. For your entire life, you have been a passenger in a vehicle driven by these ancient impulses. Today, you begin your training to become the pilot. This biological system, this hair-trigger amygdala, this cascade of adrenaline and cortisol, this suppression of your rational mind, is not your enemy. It is a profoundly powerful source of energy. It is your body's ultimate performance enhancement system. It has simply been miscalibrated for the world you inhabit. It is a fire alarm that is perfectly functional, but so sensitive that it goes off every time you make toast. The problem isn't the alarm, it's the sensitivity setting. The problem isn't the fire department that shows up, it's that they're being dispatched for burnt toast instead of a real inferno. The promise of this book and the journey we are about to embark on together is this. You can learn to recalibrate the alarm. You can learn to become the calm, clear-headed dispatcher who receives the emergency signal from the amygdala and decides with conscious intention whether to sound the citywide alarm or to simply say, "Thank you for the alert. It's just toast. Stand down." This is not a matter of willpower or toughing it out. You cannot command the amygdala to be quiet any more than you can command your heart to stop beating. It operates outside the realm of conscious language. But you can learn to influence it. You can learn the skills to create a crucial space, a momentary gap between the trigger and your reaction. In that gap lies your freedom. In that gap, you can soothe the amygdala's alarm and bring your prefrontal cortex, your best self, your true intelligence, back online. In that gap, you can transform the raw, chaotic energy of the stress response from something that hijacks you into something that serves you. You can learn to feel your heart pound before a big presentation and interpret it not as fear, but as your body supplying you with the energy to perform at your peak. You can learn to face a difficult conversation not with a defensive crouch, but with a grounded clarity. You can turn the flood of stress hormones from a destructive tsunami into a river you can channel, a source of power you can direct with purpose and skill. You have now been properly introduced to the ancient programming that governs your reactions to pressure. You've met the saber-toothed tiger hiding in the coat of your brain. You understand that your feelings of panic and overwhelm are not a sign of weakness, but the predictable output of a system that is working exactly as designed. But this is only the first step, for this system has not just been triggering momentary panics. Unbeknownst to you, it has been acting as an architect, actively and physically reshaping the very structure of your brain day after day to make you more anxious and more reactive. In the next chapter, we will explore this terrifying and fascinating process. We will uncover how the chronic pressure of modern life is physically building the architecture of anxiety inside your skull. But more importantly, we will discover the master key, the biological secret that allows you to halt that construction and begin a new project, building the architecture of unshakable calm and power. What if I told you that the chronic stress you're feeling isn't just a state of mind? That it's not merely a series of bad days or a fleeting emotional weather pattern? What if I told you that pressure is a physical force, and it is acting as a master architect inside your skull, carrying out a slow, silent, and relentless construction project? A project that is, brick by neurological brick, building you a prison of your own design, where the walls are made of anxiety, the bars are forged from reactivity, and the warden is the very part of you that longs to be free. This may sound like a grim metaphor, but it is a biological reality. In the last chapter, we confronted the momentary coup that takes place in your brain during an amygdala hijack. We saw how a single trigger can launch an ancient, primal panic response, flooding you with hormones and shutting down your rational mind. That is the acute, in-the-moment experience of pressure. But what happens when those moments are no longer isolated events? What happens when the saber-toothed tiger isn't a rare predator, but a constant, menacing shadow that follows you through your office, your home, and even into your sleep? The answer is both terrifying and ultimately empowering. The answer lies in one of the most miraculous and misunderstood properties of the human brain: its ability to change itself. For centuries, we believed the adult brain was a fixed, static entity. We thought that by the time you reached your early 20s, the wiring was set, the hardware was locked in, and you were essentially stuck with the brain you had. We now know this is profoundly untrue. Your brain is not a finished sculpture. It is a living, dynamic river of clay, constantly being shaped and reshaped by every single thing you think, feel, and do. This property is called neuroplasticity, and it is the double-edged sword upon which your entire experience of life is built. Neuroplasticity is the master mechanism of learning and adaptation. It's how you learn to ride a bike, speak a new language, or master a difficult skill. Think of your brain as a dense, untamed wilderness, crisscrossed by trillions of potential pathways between brain cells or neurons. When you perform an action or think a thought for the first time, it's like hacking a faint trail through that dense undergrowth. It's difficult, requires effort and concentration. But if you walk that same trail again, it's a little easier. And if you walk it every single day, the faint trail becomes a well-worn path. With enough repetition, your brain, ever the efficiency expert, decides to upgrade the infrastructure. It paves the path, turning it into a road. With even more use, it becomes a multi-lane superhighway, slicked with a substance called myelin that allows electrical signals to travel at incredible speeds. The thought or action becomes automatic, effortless, second nature. The fundamental law of neuroplasticity is brutally simple and impartial. Neurons that fire together wire together. Your brain doesn't judge whether the pathways you are building are good or bad. It doesn't care if you're practicing the piano or practicing the art of worrying. It is an obedient servant. It simply observes which circuits you use most frequently and reinforces them. It strengthens the connections you use and allows the ones you neglect to weaken and fade away in a process called synaptic pruning. It is the ultimate use it or lose it system. And herein lies the dark side of this incredible gift. For most of your life, you have not been the conscious director of this process. You have been a passive observer. And while you weren't paying attention, your daily experience of stress has been acting as the foreman, commanding a vast neurological construction crew. Every time you were hijacked by your amygdala, every time you were flooded with cortisol, every time you ruminated on a negative outcome, you were not just having a bad moment. You were placing a work order. You were commanding that crew to reinforce the very neural pathways that produce anxiety. You have, without knowing it, been meticulously training your brain to become an expert in stress. Let's put on a hard hat and tour the two main sites of this construction project. We'll examine exactly how chronic pressure physically remodels the most critical structures in your brain, turning it from a tool of rational empowerment into an engine of fear. Our first stop is the security office, the amygdala. As we learned, this is your brain's panic button. In a healthy, balanced brain, the amygdala functions like a highly trained but restrained bodyguard. It's quiet, observant, and only springs into action when there is a clear and present danger. However, every time you experience an amygdala hijack, you are essentially sending that bodyguard to the gym. The flood of stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, acts like a potent form of neurological steroid for your fear circuitry. When you are stressed, your amygdala is highly active. Its neurons are firing intensely. And because neurons that fire together wire together, these repeated activations cause profound physical changes. The neurons within the amygdala begin to sprout new branches, called dendrites, allowing them to form more and stronger connections with other neurons. The amygdala literally becomes more densely networked, more powerful. Studies on individuals with chronic stress or anxiety disorders have shown that their amygdalas are often physically larger and demonstrably more active than those of their calmer counterparts. What does this mean for you in your day-to-day life? It means your internal alarm system is getting an upgrade you never asked for. It becomes more sensitive. The triggers required to set it off become smaller and smaller. A calm "can we talk" from a partner, which you once would have taken at face value, now triggers a jolt of panic. The mild pressure of a normal workday, which you used to handle with ease, now feels overwhelming. Your bodyguard has become a paranoid, jumpy, trigger-happy rookie who sees a potential assassin around every corner. The alarm doesn't just ring more often, it rings louder. The emotional reaction is more intense and lasts longer. The burnt toast that used to trigger a brief puff of smoke from the alarm now results in a full-scale 5-alarm evacuation of the entire building. This is the first half of the architecture of anxiety, a fortified, enlarged, and hyper-reactive fear center. You have, without knowing it, built a superhighway straight to the heart of panic. Now let's visit our second construction site, the one where the most devastating work is being done. We're heading up to the executive suite, the prefrontal cortex, PFC. This is your center for logic, reason, and emotional regulation. The PFC is the biological counterbalance to the amygdala. It's the calm, experienced CEO who can receive a panicked report from the security chief and say, "I understand your concern, but my analysis shows we are not in danger. Stand down." The connection between the PFC and the amygdala is one of the most important relationships in your brain. A strong PFC can effectively inhibit or quiet the amygdala's alarms. It's the adult in the room, the hand on the brake. But chronic exposure to stress, and particularly to the hormone cortisol, is profoundly toxic to the PFC. While cortisol acts as a growth hormone for the amygdala, it acts as a corrosive acid in the executive suite. High levels of cortisol disrupt synaptic connections in the PFC. They actively dismantle the roads connecting rational thought to emotional impulse. The process of synaptic pruning goes into overdrive, snipping away at the delicate networks that support your highest cognitive functions. Worse still, prolonged exposure to cortisol can actually kill neurons in the PFC, leading to a measurable loss of gray matter. The CEO is not just being ignored, the very office they work in is shrinking, the phone lines are being cut, and the staff is being laid off. The consequences of this are catastrophic. As your PFC weakens, its ability to regulate the now supercharged amygdala diminishes. The brake pedal becomes soft and unresponsive. This is the biological reason for the classic symptoms of being overwhelmed by pressure. Your working memory suffers. You can't hold multiple pieces of information in your head at once. Your attention scatters. You become more impulsive, less able to resist temptation or think about long-term consequences. Your decision-making becomes biased toward immediate, fear-based reactions rather than careful, strategic thinking. You experience brain fog, a feeling of mental slowness and confusion. You are, quite literally, losing your mind's ability to manage itself. Now let's step back and look at the finished product of this neurological construction project. On one side, you have a fortified, super-sensitive amygdala, constantly scanning for threats and screaming fire at the slightest provocation. On the other side, you have a weakened, atrophied prefrontal cortex, whose ability to check the facts and calm the alarm is severely compromised. This creates a terrifying feedback loop, a downward spiral encoded in your very flesh. The overactive amygdala floods your system with more cortisol, which further weakens the PFC. The weakened PFC is then even less capable of calming down the amygdala, which allows it to become even more reactive. Round and round it goes. You become trapped in a state of chronic, low-grade fight or flight. You feel wired and tired, constantly on edge but simultaneously exhausted. Your resilience plummets. Minor setbacks feel like major disasters. Your world, which once felt full of opportunity, starts to feel like a minefield of potential threats. This is the architecture of anxiety. It is a neurological prison built not of steel and stone, but of reinforced neural pathways and diminished brain matter. And the most insidious thing about this prison is that it feels like you. You don't think, my prefrontal cortex is being weakened by cortisol. You think, I'm losing my edge, or I just can't handle things anymore, or what's wrong with me? You mistake a biological process for a personal failing. You believe the architect is the architect, and that is the lie that has kept you trapped. Reading this, you might feel a pit forming in your stomach. This is a grim diagnosis, but I want you to take a deep breath because we have now arrived at the most important turning point in this entire book. We have arrived at the moment where we turn this entire narrative on its head. The monster in this story is neuroplasticity, the relentless, impartial mechanism that built your prison. But what if I told you that the monster is also the hero? What if the poison is also the antidote? The law of neuroplasticity, neurons that fire together, wire together, is not a curse. It is a neutral, fundamental law of nature, like the law of gravity. Gravity doesn't care if it's holding you safely on the ground or pulling a falling piano onto your head. It is simply a force. Neuroplasticity is the same. It does not have a preference. It will build a prison of anxiety with the same efficiency and precision that it will build a palace of calm. It all depends on the blueprints it is given. It all depends on the foreman in charge. For your entire life, chronic, unconscious reaction to stress has been the foreman. But that is about to change. The very fact that your brain can be physically changed by your experience is the ultimate key to your freedom. It is the empirical, biological proof that you are not fixed. Your anxiety is not a permanent part of your personality. It is a temporary structure, and you now understand how it was built. Which means you can learn how to dismantle it, and you can learn how to build something new in its place. You are about to become the architect. Starting in the next chapter, you will be given the tools, the techniques, and the blueprints to hijack this process for your own benefit. You will learn how to consciously and deliberately create experiences that will reverse the damage. You will learn targeted mental exercises that are the neurological equivalent of sending a construction crew to the executive suite, tasked with rebuilding and strengthening your prefrontal cortex. These are not positive thinking platitudes. They are targeted workouts that will physically increase the neural density and connectivity in the parts of your brain responsible for focus, discipline, and calm. Simultaneously, you will learn how to starve the beast. You will learn techniques to soothe your amygdala, to stop activating those fear circuits so compulsively. And just as the law of neuroplasticity builds up what you use, it tears down what you don't. As you stop walking down those old familiar pathways of panic and worry, the jungle will begin to reclaim them. The superhighways to fear will become overgrown, neglected backroads, while you pave new, gleaming freeways to clarity and composure. This is the promise. The power that has been working against you is the single greatest power you have working for you. The clay of your brain is not yet fired. It is still soft, still malleable, still waiting for the hands of a conscious sculptor. The storm of pressure has been the force shaping it by default. Now you will become the shaping force. You will learn to intervene in this biological process and take the wheel. First, however, we must lay the foundation for this new construction. We must learn the single most important skill of all, how to stop the existing demolition crew in its tracks. Before you can build, you must learn how to create a moment of peace. You must learn how to find the space that exists between a trigger and your habitual reaction. In that space, that tiny, precious gap, lies the power to change everything. And in the next chapter, I will show you exactly how to find it. There is a profound, almost mythical idea echoed by philosophers, psychologists, and survivors of unimaginable hardship. It is the single most powerful concept for taking back control of your life, and it is deceptively simple. The idea is this: between the stimulus that prods you and the response you give, there is a space. Between the trigger and your reaction, there is a gap. In that gap lies your freedom. In that gap lies your power to choose your response. And in your response lies your growth and your happiness. Now, I want you to be honest with yourself. How often do you live in that space? For most of us, most of the time, that space doesn't seem to exist at all. It is a microscopic, theoretical crack that is sealed shut the moment pressure is applied. The insulting comment from a coworker arrives, and the angry retort flies out of your mouth before you've even registered the decision to speak. The notification chimes with bad news, and the wave of dread washes over you, instantaneous and total. The unexpected problem arises in a project, and the familiar cold clench of panic takes hold as if it were a physical reflex, like pulling your hand from a hot stove. This is the zero-gap life. It is a life lived on autopilot, a series of pre-programmed chain reactions. It is the life of an automaton, a biological machine running on the ancient reactive code we dissected in the previous chapters. And it is the primary source of our regret, our frustration, and our feeling of powerlessness. How many times have you thought to yourself, hours after a stressful encounter, "I wish I had said this instead," or "I wish I had just stayed calm"? In those moments of reflection, you are accessing the wisdom of your prefrontal cortex, the calm CEO of your brain. But the tragedy is that the CEO only showed up for the post-mortem, long after the rogue security chief in your amygdala had already taken control of the situation, made a mess of things, and left you to deal with the consequences. Living without the gap is to be perpetually at the mercy of your own biology. It's to be a puppet, and your own amygdala is the puppeteer, pulling your strings with every perceived threat. It doesn't matter how intelligent, talented, or ambitious you are. If you cannot master the gap, you will never be the master of your own life. You will spend your days reacting to the world instead of acting upon it. You will see your best intentions, your desire to be patient, to be strategic, to be compassionate, constantly sabotaged by a lightning-fast emotional hijack that you feel powerless to stop. This is not a character flaw. Let me repeat that. This is not a sign of weakness. It is the direct and predictable result of the brain's architecture, an architecture that has been reinforced by a lifetime of unconscious practice. Remember the two roads for information in the brain: the high road, the scenic route to the rational prefrontal cortex, and the low road, the neural superhighway straight to the amygdala. In a brain conditioned by chronic stress, that superhighway is an 8-lane autobahn, and the scenic route is an overgrown, barely visible dirt track. Your reaction is instantaneous because the wiring demands that it be. The signal for panic arrives and triggers a response before the signal for rational thought has even left the station. The cost of this zero-gap existence is immense. It damages our most important relationships when we snap at people we love. It sabotages our careers when we make impulsive, fear-based decisions instead of strategic ones. And it corrodes our own self-respect, leaving us in a state of constant frustration with ourselves, wondering why we keep making the same mistakes, falling into the same emotional traps, and reacting in ways that are beneath our own standards. But what if you could change that? What if you could, with a simple, conscious action, install a traffic light on that superhighway to the amygdala? What if you could create a pause button for your own mind, giving the slower, wiser part of your brain the time it needs to catch up and take control? That is precisely what we are going to do in this chapter. We are going to stop talking about the problem and start implementing the solution. You are about to learn how to consciously and deliberately create that sacred space between stimulus and response. These are not mere relaxation techniques to be used when you have 20 minutes to spare for a spa day. These are powerful frontline neurological tools. They are the circuit breakers for your mind. They are the practical, science-backed methods for prying open the gap, even if only for a few seconds. And a few seconds is all you need. A few seconds is the difference between a disastrous reaction and a masterful response. A few seconds is the difference between being a prisoner of your past and the architect of your future. The first tool we will install is arguably the most powerful because it uses your body's own built-in tranquilizer system. It leverages a direct physical connection to the part of your nervous system responsible for calmness and safety. This tool is called the physiological sigh. Popularized by neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman of Stanford University, the physiological sigh is not a new age breathing exercise. It is a breathing pattern that you and every other mammal on Earth have been doing unconsciously since birth. You do it naturally during sleep to off-gas excess carbon dioxide and reinflate collapsed air sacs in your lungs. It is a primal, reflexive pattern that your brainstem uses to regulate feelings of panic and soothe the nervous system. The beauty of this technique is that you can consciously choose to activate this reflexive calming mechanism at any moment. Here is how you perform it. It is incredibly simple. You will take 2 consecutive inhales through your nose, followed by 1 long, slow, extended exhale through your mouth. The first inhale should be the primary one, filling your lungs. Then, without exhaling, you sneak in a second, shorter inhale on top of the first. This second inhale is crucial. It pops open the tiny air sacs in your lungs called alveoli, which may have collapsed under stress. Then you exhale everything, slowly and completely through your mouth for as long as you can. Let's break down why this is not just taking a deep breath, but a precision-engineered neurological intervention. Your state of arousal or calmness is largely controlled by a tug-of-war between 2 branches of your autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your gas pedal, initiating the fight or flight response. The parasympathetic nervous system is your brake pedal, initiating the rest and digest response. You cannot reason your way into calmness when your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive, but you can physically activate the brake. The primary nerve of the parasympathetic system is the vagus nerve. It is a massive nerve that wanders from your brainstem down through your chest and into your abdomen, connecting to your heart, lungs, and digestive tract. It is a two-way information highway. When you are stressed, your brain sends signals down the vagus nerve to speed up your heart and lungs. But, and this is the secret, it works in reverse too. You can send signals up the vagus nerve to tell your brain that you are safe. The magic is in the exhale. Your heart rate naturally speeds up when you inhale and slows down when you exhale. A long, extended exhale, like the one in the physiological sigh, is the most powerful way to tap into this connection. As you slowly exhale, you increase the pressure in your chest cavity, which is detected by sensory neurons connected to the vagus nerve. This sends a signal directly to your brain. All clear, stand down, activate the parasympathetic braking system. Your brain responds by releasing a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which acts as a natural tranquilizer for your heart, literally slowing its rhythm. Simultaneously, the double inhale is tackling the problem from another angle, the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, CO2, in your blood. When you become stressed, your breathing often becomes shallow and rapid. This can paradoxically make you feel short of breath and increase feelings of panic because you're not efficiently expelling CO2. High levels of CO2 in the bloodstream are a primary internal panic trigger for your brainstem. The double inhale fully inflates the alveoli, maximizing the surface area of your lungs. The long exhale then allows you to offload a maximum amount of that panic-inducing CO2. In a single breath cycle, you have sent two powerful simultaneous signals to your brain's control center. One via the vagus nerve, mechanical pressure, and one via the bloodstream, CO2 levels. Both signals say the same thing: the danger has passed. Think of the physiological sigh as a hard reset for your nervous system. The amygdala is screaming, "Tiger!" and you, with one or two conscious breaths, are sending an undeniable physiological message back to the command center that says, "False alarm." This is you, in real time, intervening in a biological process. The beauty of it is its speed. 1 to 3 cycles is often enough to halt the runaway train of an amygdala hijack, stopping the flood of adrenaline and cortisol before it completely short-circuits your rational mind. This is your first and most immediate tool for creating the gap. The moment you feel the telltale signs of pressure, the tight chest, the racing heart, the clenching stomach, that is your cue. Don't think, don't analyze, just sigh. Double inhale through the nose, long exhale through the mouth. You are not trying to solve the problem that caused the stress. You are simply giving yourself the neurological space to be able to think clearly about the problem. You are taking the panicked security chief offline and bringing the calm CEO back to their desk. Now, let's add a second tool to your arsenal. While the physiological sigh is a powerful bottom-up approach, using the body to change the mind, our next tool is a top-down technique. It works by deliberately re-engaging the part of your brain that gets shut down during a hijack, the prefrontal cortex. This tool is called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. An amygdala hijack is a form of time travel. Your mind is violently pulled out of the present moment and thrown into a catastrophic future, "I'm going to get fired," or a painful past, "This is just like that time I failed before." You become trapped in a mental prison of your own narratives, a looping horror film of worst-case scenarios. The key to escaping this prison is to force your brain back into the physical reality of the present moment. The 5-4-3-2 method does this by systematically hijacking your attention away from your internal monologue and redirecting it to your external sensory input. The method is simple, requires no equipment, and can be done anywhere, anytime, without anyone even knowing you're doing it. When you feel yourself spiraling, you pause and deliberately, mindfully, find and name 5 things you can see. Don't just glance, look at the objects. Notice the detail, the precise blue of that pen, the way the light reflects off the wood grain on the desk, the small crack in the ceiling plaster, the deep green of the leaf on the plant in the corner, the text on the spine of that book. 4 things you can feel. Again, be specific. The rough texture of my jacket sleeve against my forearm, the smooth, cool surface of the table under my fingertips, the pressure of my feet flat on the floor, the slight tension in my own shoulders. 3 things you can hear. Listen past the noise in your own head, the low hum of the computer fan, the distant sound of traffic outside the window, the sound of my own slow breathing. 2 things you can smell. This can be subtle, the faint scent of coffee in my mug, the smell of the soap on my own hands. 1 thing you can taste, even if it's just the neutral taste in your own mouth or a sip of water, the lingering taste of mint from my toothpaste. What is happening neurologically as you do this? You are engaging in a task that is impossible for the amygdala to perform. The amygdala deals in broad strokes, in primal emotions, in survival narratives. It does not care about the specific shade of blue of a pen. That level of detailed, objective sensory processing is the job of your cerebral cortex, orchestrated by your prefrontal cortex. By deliberately forcing your attention to catalog sensory information, you are manually shifting your brain's resources. You are pulling blood flow and electrical energy away from the primitive emotional limbic system and redirecting it to the advanced analytical neocortex. You are essentially changing the channel in your brain. The amygdala is broadcasting its emergency signal on channel 1, but you are grabbing the remote and purposefully tuning in to the calm, factual documentary playing on channel 2. The brain cannot effectively focus on 2 things at once. It cannot be lost in a catastrophic future narrative while it is also actively engaged in observing the precise texture of a wooden desk. This technique is a pattern interrupt. It breaks the feedback loop of anxiety. The anxious thought creates a stressful feeling, which creates another anxious thought, and so on. The 5-4-3-2-1 method smashes that loop by introducing a completely different kind of mental activity. It anchors you in the undeniable reality of the present moment. In this present moment, right now, as you are noticing the hum of the computer, you are safe. The saber-toothed tiger is just a thought, a ghost. It is not physically in the room. This grounding in the now gives your prefrontal cortex the foothold it needs to regain control and assess the situation rationally. These two techniques, the physiological sigh and the 5-4-3-2-1 method, are your foundational skills. They are your entry point into the gap. Your task now is to begin to practice them, not just when you are in a full-blown crisis, but at the first whisper of pressure. Feel a pang of anxiety when you look at your calendar. Take one physiological sigh. Notice your thoughts starting to race before a meeting. Quickly run through 5-4-3-2-1. Think of this as a form of mental martial arts. In the beginning, the movements will feel clunky and deliberate. You will have to consciously think about it. But every time you use one of these tools to create a gap, you are doing more than just managing a stressful moment. You are performing an act of neuroplasticity. You are casting a vote for a new way of being. You are weakening the old automatic reactive pathway and forging a new neural pathway, a pathway of conscious, intentional response. With practice, the gap will begin to open more easily. What was once a hairline crack will become a space you can inhabit. And in that space, choice is born. You no longer have to be the person who snaps, who panics, or who shuts down. In that space, you can choose to be the person you truly want to be. You have now learned how to stop the construction of the prison. You have the circuit breakers to halt the demolition of your mind's executive suite. But stopping the damage is only the beginning. Now that you know how to create a space, it's time to learn how to use that space to build something new. In the next chapter, we will turn from defense to offense. You will become the architect. You will learn how to flip the neuroplasticity switch on purpose and begin the deliberate, rewarding work of rewiring your brain for a default state of unshakable calm and power. You have been a passive recipient of your brain's wiring your entire life. Think about that for a moment. Every reaction, every mood, every habitual thought has been carving grooves into your neural landscape, reinforcing certain pathways and neglecting others, all without your conscious consent. You've been living in a house that was designed and built by circumstance, by accident, by the random winds of stress and experience. You learned how to navigate its strange hallways and avoid the rooms that made you anxious, but you never once believed you could pick up a hammer and knock down a wall. Today, that ends. Today, you stop being a tenant in your own mind and become the architect. In the last chapter, you learned the critical skill of intervention. You learned how to slam on the brakes, how to pry open a gap between the trigger and the reaction, saving yourself from the immediate devastation of an emotional hijack. This is the essential first step, stopping the damage. But it is, by its nature, a defensive maneuver. It's the neurological equivalent of patching a leaking dam. Today, we move from defense to offense. We're going to stop just patching the dam. We're going to redirect the entire river. We are going to consciously and deliberately use the fundamental force of neuroplasticity to build a new, better, and fundamentally calmer brain. To do this, we must first confront the silent, invisible force that has been working against you your entire life. It's a ghost in your cognitive code, an evolutionary hangover that acts as the primary foreman for the architecture of anxiety. It is a phenomenon known as the negativity bias. The negativity bias is your brain's natural, deeply ingrained tendency to pay more attention to, learn from, and be more influenced by negative experiences than positive ones. Your brain, in its infinite and ancient wisdom, did not evolve to make you happy. It evolved to keep you alive. And in the brutal calculus of survival, threats were always more important than opportunities. Your ancestor who vividly remembered the one time they saw a lion near the watering hole was more likely to survive than the ancestor who only remembered the 50 beautiful lion-free sunsets they enjoyed there. The pain of a mistake had to be seared into memory to prevent its repetition, while the pleasure of success was a fleeting luxury. The result is a brain that is like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones. Think back on your last performance review. If you received 9 pieces of glowing praise and 1 minor constructive criticism, which one did you spend the entire drive home ruminating on? Which one did you replay in your mind as you tried to fall asleep? The criticism, of course. The 9 positive comments slid right off your Teflon-coated consciousness, while the single negative one stuck fast to the Velcro, triggering feelings of inadequacy and worry. This isn't a personal failing, it's a universal human trait. It's the reason why a single insult can ruin a day full of compliments. It's why we worry obsessively about what might go wrong, even when things are, for the most part, going right. The negativity bias is the wind that constantly blows your mental ship toward the rocky shores of anxiety, fear, and self-doubt. It ensures that, by default, the neurons that are firing most often are the ones associated with threat, worry, and stress. And because neurons that fire together wire together, this bias is the engine of anxious neuroplasticity. It is the reason that, left to its own devices, your brain will build itself a prison. But the law of neuroplasticity is impartial. It is a force of nature that can be harnessed. The negativity bias has been in the driver's seat for long enough. It's time for you to take the wheel. The tools you are about to receive are not wishful thinking or feel-good platitudes. They are targeted neurological workouts. Think of them as the mental equivalent of going to the gym. You cannot build physical muscle by just wishing for it. You must perform specific exercises with intention and repetition to stimulate growth. In the exact same way, you cannot build a calmer, more resilient brain by just hoping for it. You must perform specific mental exercises that stimulate the growth of new neural pathways and strengthen the parts of your brain, like the prefrontal cortex, that counteract the amygdala's panic. You are about to flip the neuroplasticity switch from its default anxious setting to a deliberate, calm, and powerful setting. You are about to become the foreman of your own mind. Tool number 1. The mental spotlight, the power of focused attention. The first and most fundamental tool you have for rewiring your brain is your attention. Your attention is like a spotlight in the vast, dark theater of your consciousness. Whatever it illuminates, the brain registers as important. When that spotlight is left to wander on its own, the negativity bias will almost always direct it toward the dark corners of the stage, the threats, the worries, the failures. Consciously controlling that spotlight is your first act as the architect. When you deliberately hold your attention on a positive or even neutral experience, you are performing a revolutionary act. You are overriding your ancient survival programming. You are telling your brain, this right here is what's important. Build a pathway to this feeling. This practice isn't about ignoring the negative, it's about refusing to let the negative have a monopoly on your mental real estate. Here is your first neurological workout. It is called the 3-minute savoring practice. It is simple, requires nothing but your own mind, and is profoundly effective at beginning the process of rewiring. Select a target. Choose a simple, positive sensory experience. This could be the warmth of a cup of coffee in your hands, the taste of a piece of fruit, the feeling of the sun on your skin, the sound of a favorite piece of music, or the sight of a flower. The key is to pick something small and tangible that is happening right now. Focus the spotlight. For 3 minutes, your only job is to keep the spotlight of your attention on that single sensory experience. Your mind will wander. That is what minds do. The negativity bias will try to drag your attention away to your to-do list or a recent worry. The exercise is not to have a perfectly still mind. The exercise is in the gentle, firm, and repeated act of bringing your attention back to your chosen sensation over and over again. Go deeper. As you hold your attention, explore the sensation in detail. If it's the coffee, don't just think coffee. Notice the exact temperature of the mug. Notice the steam rising. Inhale the aroma and try to pick out the different notes. When you sip, notice the flavor as it hits the tip of your tongue, the sides, the back. Notice the feeling of the warm liquid going down your throat. You are using your prefrontal cortex to direct a deep analytical dive into a positive experience. What are you actually doing inside your brain? Every time your mind wanders to a worry and you deliberately bring it back to the warmth of the cup, you are strengthening the neural circuits of your prefrontal cortex. You are literally exercising the muscle of executive control. You are training the CEO to be stronger than the panicked security guard. Furthermore, by lingering on a pleasant sensation, you are bathing the associated neurons in rewarding neurotransmitters like dopamine. You are telling your brain, this is a valuable state. Let's make it easier to get back here. You are, with each repetition, hacking a new trail through the neural wilderness, a trail that leads to presence and pleasure, not panic and dread. Doing this for just a few minutes a day is like laying the first bricks for your new palace of calm. Tool number 2, the gratitude circuit, rewiring for opportunity. If focused attention is the hammer, gratitude is the blueprint. Gratitude, when practiced as a structured mental exercise, is one of the most powerful known antidotes to the negativity bias. Your brain's default setting is to scan the world for threats. A gratitude practice actively retrains it to scan for opportunities, for blessings, for what is working. Again, this is not about putting on rose-colored glasses and pretending problems don't exist. It's about correcting a deeply ingrained cognitive imbalance. It's about giving the good things in your life equal airtime in the parliament of your mind. The practice is simple, but its effects, confirmed by numerous scientific studies, are profound. It is called the 3 good things exercise. Every evening before you go to sleep, set aside 5 minutes. Get a dedicated notebook for this purpose. The physical act of writing is more neurologically potent than typing. Recall and record. Your task is to write down 3 things that went well for you during the day. They do not have to be monumental events. I finished a difficult report. My partner made me laugh. I enjoyed a walk in the park. The traffic was light on my way home. The small things are often the most powerful. Analyze the cause. This is the most important step. For each good thing, write a brief sentence about why it happened. I finished the report because I focused and worked hard for an hour. My partner made me laugh because we share a silly sense of humor. I enjoyed the walk because I chose to put my phone away and notice my surroundings. This simple act transforms gratitude from a passive feeling into an active neurological process. Step 2 directly combats the Teflon brain effect, forcing you to register and encode positive events you might otherwise have forgotten by the end of the day. But step 3 is where the real magic happens. By analyzing the cause, you are often connecting the positive event back to your own agency, your own choices, or your own good qualities. This builds self-efficacy and internalizes the source of goodness, rather than seeing it as a random external event. What's the neurochemical payoff? The act of recalling and writing about positive events releases dopamine in the brain's reward center. More importantly, it is believed to boost serotonin production. Serotonin is a master neurotransmitter, and many antidepressant medications work by increasing its availability in the brain. Think of this exercise as a natural, gentle, and cumulative antidepressant that you are administering yourself every single night. You are ending your day by marinating your brain in a chemistry of well-being, which not only improves your sleep, but also gradually shifts your baseline mood. Over weeks and months, you are retraining your brain's filtering system. You begin to go through your day subconsciously looking for things you can write about later. You have flipped the switch. You are no longer just scanning for tigers. You are actively scanning for treasure. Tool 3. Mental rehearsal. Pre-paving pathways for success. Our final tool is perhaps the most direct way to become the architect of your future self. It leverages a stunning neurological fact. Your brain often cannot tell the difference between a real lived experience and a vividly imagined one. When you imagine yourself performing an action, you activate many of the same neural circuits as if you were actually performing it. This is why visualization is a cornerstone of training for elite athletes, surgeons, and performers. They are building and strengthening the neural pathways for success before they ever step into the arena. For you, this tool, which we will call the calm rehearsal, is your method for preparing your brain for high-pressure situations. Instead of walking into a stressful event and hoping for the best, you will pre-pave the neural superhighway for your desired outcome: calm confidence.
Find an upcoming event that you anticipate will be stressful. A difficult conversation, a job interview, a public speaking engagement. Find a quiet space. For 5 to 10 minutes, sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths to settle your nervous system. A couple of physiological sighs would be perfect here. Run the mental movie. Now visualize the event from start to finish. But you will not visualize it the way you normally would, colored by the negativity bias, imagining all the things that could go wrong. You will direct this movie, and in this version, you are the hero. See the event unfold exactly as you would wish it to. Engage all senses. Make it as real and detailed as possible. See yourself walking into the room, your posture tall and confident. Hear the sound of your own voice, steady and clear. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Most importantly, feel the internal state you wish to have. Feel the calm, focused energy in your body. Feel the clarity in your mind. Imagine yourself handling a difficult question with grace. See the positive reactions on the faces of others. Run this positive movie from the beginning to a successful conclusion. Feel the feeling of relief and satisfaction at the end. This is not a fantasy. It is a neurological training session. Every time you run this positive mental rehearsal, you are firing the specific neurons for calmness and competence in the context of that specific trigger. You are wiring them together. You are creating a memory of the future. So, when you actually walk into that situation, your brain already has a well-practiced pathway to follow. It has a script for success. The amygdala's fear response is often triggered by novelty and uncertainty. By mentally rehearsing the event, you are making it familiar. You are desensitizing your brain to the trigger. You are teaching your amygdala, "I've seen this before, and it turns out okay. There is no tiger here." You are replacing the default fear-based neural pathway with a newly constructed confidence-based pathway. When the moment of pressure arrives, your brain is far more likely to default to the pathway that has been most recently and vividly strengthened. These three tools, focused attention, the gratitude circuit, and the calm rehearsal, are your new construction equipment. They are the drills, saws, and hammers of intentional neuroplasticity. At first, using them will feel effortful, just like your first day at the gym. But every repetition is a victory. Every time you savor a good moment, you are building your PFV. Every time you list a good thing, you are weakening your negativity bias. Every time you visualize success, you are literally carving the grooves of competence into your mind. This is the work. It is the slow, steady, and deeply rewarding process of tearing down the old architecture of anxiety and building in its place the sanctuary of your own unshakable calm. You have stopped the hijack. You have begun the rewiring. Now it is time to face the feeling of pressure itself. It is time to learn the alchemy of turning the lead of stress into the gold of power. In the next chapter, we will learn how to reinterpret the very physical sensations of anxiety and transform them into your greatest source of strength.
What if the feeling you call anxiety is a profound misunderstanding? What if that frantic, thunderous beating in your chest, the electric hum of energy in your limbs, the shallow, quick breaths, and the cold sweat on your palms are not the overture to your failure? What if they are, in fact, the feeling of your body and mind gearing up for peak performance? What if I told you that the very sensations you have spent your entire life trying to suppress, avoid, and medicate are the signature of your own latent power coming online, and your only mistake has been mislabeling the package? This is not a semantic trick. It is not a clever mind game. It is a fundamental shift in understanding your own biology that can single-handedly transform your relationship with pressure. You have been handed a key your entire life, and you have been convinced it was a weapon pointed at your own heart. For every high-stakes presentation, every crucial exam, every difficult conversation, every moment where you needed to be at your absolute best, you have felt that familiar surge of physiological arousal. And your first thought, conditioned by a lifetime of social programming and biological instinct, has likely been, "Oh no, I'm nervous, this is bad, I need to calm down." This single thought, this instantaneous unconscious interpretation, is the poison in the system. It is the act that curdles the raw energy of readiness into the debilitating experience of anxiety. The moment you label the arousal as bad, you trigger a secondary wave of stress. You are now stressed about being stressed. Your amygdala, already on high alert from the initial trigger, now detects a new threat, your own internal state. Not only is there a tiger in the room, it screams, but our own response system is malfunctioning. This is a catastrophe. This launches a feedback loop of panic that drains your confidence, clouds your thinking, and cripples your performance. You become so focused on fighting the feeling that you have no resources left to face the actual challenge. The great tragedy is that you are fighting the wrong enemy. You have declared war on your own reinforcements. You have been trying to tranquilize your own elite special forces unit right before a major mission. The problem has never been the energy. The problem has been your story about the energy. To understand this alchemy, we must venture back into your nervous system, but with a new lens. We must look at the almost surreal similarity between two emotions we consider polar opposites, fear and excitement. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, you are walking down a dark alley at night and hear heavy, running footsteps approaching quickly from behind. In the second, you are standing backstage and you hear the roar of a massive, adoring crowd as the announcer calls your name to receive a prestigious award. Now, let a neuroscientist wire you up to a series of monitors. What would they see? In both cases, your amygdala fires, sending an alert to your hypothalamus. In both cases, your adrenal glands dump adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. Your heart rate would skyrocket, your breathing would become rapid, your pupils would dilate, glucose would flood your muscles, your palms would sweat. On a purely physiological level, the readout for abject terror and exhilarating excitement would be virtually indistinguishable. Your body is producing the exact same state of high arousal. It is preparing for a moment of intense, decisive action. So, what is the difference? The difference is not in your body, it is in your mind. The difference is the cognitive label you apply to the raw data of your physical sensations. It is the narrative you construct. In the dark alley, your prefrontal cortex interprets the arousal through a lens of threat. The footsteps mean danger. This energy is fear. I am about to be harmed. In the award ceremony, your prefrontal cortex interprets the exact same arousal through a lens of opportunity. The crowd means validation. This energy is excitement. I am about to be celebrated. The physical energy is neutral. It is a powerful, undifferentiated state of readiness. It is pure fuel. Your interpretation is the spark that determines whether that fuel will result in a destructive explosion of panic or the controlled, directed thrust of a rocket engine. For your entire life under pressure, you have been unconsciously choosing the fear narrative. You feel your heart pound before a job interview, and your brain's default, negativity-biased script begins to play. My heart is pounding, which means I'm nervous. If I'm nervous, I'll probably forget my answers. They'll see I'm not confident. I'm going to fail. This interpretation creates the experience of debilitating anxiety. It takes the neutral energy and gives it a negative meaning. But what if you consciously chose to run a different script? What if you learned to override the default setting? This is the power of a technique psychologists call cognitive reappraisal. It is the conscious process of changing your interpretation of a situation to change how you feel about it. In this context, it is the deliberate act of relabeling the physical sensations of stress from anxiety to excitement. This isn't just self-deception. It is a neurologically potent act of command. You are using the most advanced part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to send a new set of instructions down to your primitive limbic system. You are becoming the director of your own internal movie, changing the soundtrack from horror to adventure. The research on this is staggering. A series of studies led by Alison Wood Brooks at Harvard Business School powerfully demonstrated this principle. In one experiment, participants were told they had to perform a karaoke song in front of a stranger, a task designed to induce social anxiety. Before singing, one group was instructed to say to themselves, "I am anxious." Another group was told to say, "I am excited." The results were stunning. The I am excited group not only reported feeling more excited, but their singing performance was objectively rated as better. They sang with more pitch accuracy, volume, and confidence. They had the same physiological arousal as the anxious group, but by relabeling it, they transformed it from a liability into an asset. In another study, participants were given a difficult math test. Again, before the test, one group was told to reframe their pre-test jitters as excitement, telling themselves that the arousal would help them perform better. That group scored significantly higher on the test than the group that was told to calm down or the group that was told nothing. Trying to calm down was often ineffective or even counterproductive, because it involved fighting a natural biological state. But simply reframing the meaning of that state was the key that unlocked a higher level of performance. So, what is the difference? The difference is not in your body, it is in your mind. The difference is the cognitive label you apply to the raw data of your physical sensations. It is the narrative you construct. In the dark alley, your prefrontal cortex interprets the arousal through a lens of threat. The footsteps mean danger. This energy is fear. I am about to be harmed. In the award ceremony, your prefrontal cortex interprets the exact same arousal through a lens of opportunity. The crowd means validation. This energy is excitement. I am about to be celebrated. The physical energy is neutral. It is a powerful, undifferentiated state of readiness. It is pure fuel. Your interpretation is the spark that determines whether that fuel will result in a destructive explosion of panic or the controlled, directed thrust of a rocket engine. For your entire life under pressure, you have been unconsciously choosing the fear narrative. You feel your heart pound before a job interview, and your brain's default, negativity-biased script begins to play. My heart is pounding, which means I'm nervous. If I'm nervous, I'll probably forget my answers. They'll see I'm not confident. I'm going to fail. This interpretation creates the experience of debilitating anxiety. It takes the neutral energy and gives it a negative meaning. But what if you consciously chose to run a different script? What if you learned to override the default setting? This is the power of a technique psychologists call cognitive reappraisal. It is the conscious process of changing your interpretation of a situation to change how you feel about it. In this context, it is the deliberate act of relabeling the physical sensations of stress from anxiety to excitement. This isn't just self-deception. It is a neurologically potent act of command. You are using the most advanced part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to send a new set of instructions down to your primitive limbic system. You are becoming the director of your own internal movie, changing the soundtrack from horror to adventure. The research on this is staggering. A series of studies led by Allison Wood Brooks at Harvard Business School powerfully demonstrated this principle. In one experiment, participants were told they had to perform a karaoke song in front of a stranger, a task designed to induce social anxiety. Before singing, one group was instructed to say to themselves, "I am anxious." Another group was told to say, "I am excited." The results were stunning. The "I am excited" group not only reported feeling more excited, but their singing performance was objectively rated as better. They sang with more pitch accuracy, volume, and confidence. They had the same physiological arousal as the anxious group, but by relabeling it, they transformed it from a liability into an asset. In another study, participants were given a difficult math test. Again, before the test, one group was told to reframe their pre-test jitters as excitement, telling themselves that the arousal would help them perform better. That group scored significantly higher on the test than the group that was told to calm down or the group that was told nothing. Trying to calm down was often ineffective or even counterproductive, because it involved fighting a natural biological state. But simply reframing the meaning of that state was the key that unlocked a higher level of performance. This is the alchemy. It is the secret knowledge that your anxiety is just excitement without the breath. It is the realization that the feeling you've been dreading is the secret sauce of champions. This energy is not a sign that you are about to break. It is a sign that your body is giving you everything you need to be brilliant. So, how do you do it? How do you become this alchemist in the heat of the moment? It is a three-step process that you can practice and master, turning it from a conscious effort into an automatic reflex. Step 1. Acknowledge and welcome the sensations. The first step is a radical act of acceptance. For years, your instinct has been to resist the physical feelings of arousal. The moment your heart starts to race, you tense up, thinking, "Oh no, here it comes, make it stop." This resistance is futile and only creates more tension. The new approach is to welcome the feeling. When you feel the energy surge, I want you to mentally open the door to it. Say to yourself, there it is. The energy has arrived. My body is getting ready. Notice the sensations with the detached curiosity of a scientist. My heart is beating faster now. I feel a buzzing in my hands. Interesting. Do not judge it. Do not fight it. Simply acknowledge its presence. This act alone removes the secondary layer of stress, the stress about being stressed. You are signaling to your amygdala that your own internal state is not a threat. Step 2. Relabel the arousal out loud. This step is critical because it makes the abstract concrete. Your brain's default negative chatter is powerful and deeply ingrained. To override it, you need to use a more powerful input. Your own voice. You must externalize the new narrative. Drawing from the Harvard research, you will use a simple, powerful, declarative statement. The moment you feel the jitters before a big event, I want you to find a private space, a bathroom stall, your car, an empty office, and say out loud 3 times with conviction. I am excited. I am excited. I am excited. It may feel silly at first. Do it anyway. The act of speaking the words forces a cognitive shift. You are literally telling your brain what story to attach to the physical sensations. You are planting a flag for the prefrontal cortex, declaring its interpretation to be the official one. You are not saying, "I am not anxious." The brain often doesn't process negations well, and that statement still focuses on the word anxious. You are giving it a direct positive replacement. This feeling is excitement. Step 3. Anchor the new meaning. The final step is to connect the relabeled energy to your purpose. You need to give the fuel a direction. After you have declared your excitement, you will complete the reframe by explaining why this energy is useful. You will create a because statement that anchors the new meaning. For example, before a presentation, I am excited. This energy means my body is giving me the focus and dynamism I need to connect with my audience and deliver a powerful message. Before a difficult conversation, I am excited. This feeling means I am engaged and ready to handle this with clarity and strength. This energy will help me stay sharp and articulate my points effectively. Before a physical competition, I am excited. This is my body flooding my muscles with oxygen and fuel so I can perform at my absolute peak. This is the feeling of readiness. This final step is profoundly important. It answers the why for your brain. It completes the new narrative. You are no longer a victim of a mysterious and scary physical sensation. You are a strategic performer who understands that this arousal is a resource, a biological tool that you are grateful to have. You have transformed the raw data of fast heart rate from a symbol of fear into a symbol of competence. Let's be clear. This process will not magically make the physical sensations disappear, and that is the entire point. You are not trying to get rid of the energy, you are trying to use it. The goal is not to be a placid, Zen-like figure who feels nothing before a challenge. That is the goal of a corpse. The goal is to be an athlete, a performer, an artist who feels the full roaring fire of arousal and channels it into a magnificent performance. You are learning to surf the wave, not to stop the ocean. Think of an elite sprinter in the starting blocks of the Olympic 100-meter final. Do you imagine they are calm? Is their heart rate a placid 60 beats per minute? Of course not. Their heart is a jackhammer. Their system is coursing with adrenaline. They are in a state of supreme physiological arousal. But do they interpret that as fear? No. They interpret it as explosive power, coiled and ready to be unleashed. They have a story that serves them. They have mastered the alchemy. This is the power you are now cultivating. The next time you feel that surge, it is your cue. It is your call to action. It is the signal to begin the alchemical process. Acknowledge the feeling. Relabel it out loud. Anchor it to your purpose. With practice, this sequence will become faster, more automatic. What once took deliberate, conscious effort will become your new default. You will begin to automatically associate the feeling of a racing heart with the feeling of being on. You are fundamentally altering your relationship with your own body. The very sensations that once sent you into a spiral of doubt and panic will become a source of confidence. You will start to welcome the feeling, knowing that it means you are in the game, that your body is showing up for you, providing you with the heightened focus, the increased strength, and the sharper reflexes you need to meet the moment. The tiger's roar that once terrified you now sounds like applause. The storm of pressure is no longer something that happens to you. It is a well of power you tap into. You have stopped trying to become a calm pond and have started to embrace your destiny as the calm eye of a powerful, productive hurricane. This is the turning point where pressure ceases to be your enemy and begins to become your greatest ally. Elite soldiers preparing for a critical mission, championship athletes moments before the final game, and world-class surgeons about to perform a life-or-death operation all have one thing in common. It is a secret they rarely speak of but practice with religious devotion. They face the storm before it ever arrives. They walk through the battlefield of their minds, mapping every potential pitfall, confronting every possible failure, and rehearsing their response to 100 different disasters before ever stepping foot onto the real field of play. They do not just hope for success, they meticulously plan for failure. Now, consider your own approach. Think about the last time you faced a high-pressure situation, a crucial presentation, a difficult negotiation, a pivotal exam. What was your strategy? If you were like most people, your strategy was probably a simple, whispered prayer. I hope this goes well. You prepared your material, you practiced your lines, and then you walked into the arena armed with little more than optimism. You relied on the fragile power of hope. And hope, let me be very clear, is not a strategy. It is a lottery ticket. It is a passive wish that the universe will be kind, that the winds will be favorable, and that no unexpected obstacles will spring from the shadows. This hope for the best approach is not just ineffective, it is an open invitation for your amygdala to stage a hostile takeover of your mind. Why? Because the amygdala, your brain's ancient security guard, has two favorite triggers above all others: novelty and uncertainty. When something unexpected happens, the projector suddenly dies, a client asks a hostile question you didn't anticipate, your primary data point is revealed to be flawed, it is the shock of the new, the terror of the unknown, that slams the panic button. In that moment of surprise, your prefrontal cortex, your rational mind, is stunned into silence. It has no script, no plan, no pre-programmed response. It freezes. And in that frozen gap, the amygdala surges into the void, flooding your system with cortisol and hijacking your ability to think clearly. Your carefully prepared presentation crumbles, your confident demeanor evaporates. You are reduced to a stammering, reactive mess, improvising desperately just to survive. This reactive approach guarantees that you will be a victim of circumstance. It ensures that your performance is entirely dependent on external conditions being perfect. Any deviation from the ideal scenario becomes a potential catastrophe. You become fragile. Your confidence is a thin sheet of ice ready to shatter at the first unexpected tap. You spend the entire event in a state of low-grade anxiety, not truly focused on performing at your best, but subconsciously bracing for that unknown thing that could go wrong. This is a miserable and exhausting way to live and work. It is the reason why pressure so often breaks us, because we have done nothing to prepare our minds for its inevitable complexities. But there is another way. There is a method, ancient in its wisdom and modern in its application, for systematically identifying and neutralizing threats before they ever materialize. It is a way to walk into any storm, not with the flimsy umbrella of hope, but with the psychological armor of radical preparation. This is not about negative thinking. It is strategic thinking. It is the process of turning your greatest fears into your most detailed plans. You are about to learn how to conduct a pre-mortem, the ultimate tool for bulletproofing your performance, silencing your amygdala, and keeping your rational mind firmly in command, no matter what the world throws at you. The philosophical roots of this technique stretch back over 2 millennia to the hardened minds of the Stoic philosophers. Thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius were not dusty academics. They were men of action who lived in a brutal, unpredictable world. Their philosophy was a training manual for resilience, and one of their core practices was premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Before embarking on any important endeavor, a sea voyage, a military campaign, a political debate, a Stoic would take time to sit and vividly imagine everything that could possibly go wrong. The ship could sink in a storm. The army could be ambushed. The debate could be lost through a clever trick of an opponent. They would meditate on exile, on poverty, on injury, on betrayal. To the modern optimistic mind, this sounds like a recipe for depression. But the Stoics were not pessimists. They were strategists of the highest order. They understood a profound psychological truth. The blow that is foreseen is a blow that is softened. By imagining the worst in advance, they achieved 2 critical things. First, they desensitized themselves. The shock value of a negative event is one of its most potent weapons. By mentally experiencing the disaster in the safety of their own minds, they robbed it of its power to stun and overwhelm them. Their amygdala, having seen a simulation of the tiger, was less likely to panic when it saw the real thing. Second, and more importantly, it allowed them to prepare. If the ship might sink, what extra precautions should be taken? If the army could be ambushed, what alternative routes could be scouted? By contemplating failure, they could engineer success. This ancient wisdom has been rediscovered and repackaged for the modern world in a powerful business tool developed by the cognitive psychologist Gary Klein. He called it the pre-mortem. The logic is simple but brilliant. A standard post-mortem analysis happens after a project has failed, with the team gathering to figure out what went wrong. But by then, the damage is done. The pre-mortem is a radical inversion. It is a post-mortem that you conduct before the project even begins. It is the practical, step-by-step application of premeditatio malorum. Here is how you will conduct a pre-mortem on your own upcoming high-pressure performance. Let's use the example of a career-defining presentation to a team of executives. Step 1. The crystal ball of failure. Find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Take a piece of paper or open a new document. At the top, write down the name of your upcoming event. Now, this is the crucial imaginative leap. I want you to look into a crystal ball. You are peering into the future. The presentation is over. And it was an absolute, unequivocal, spectacular failure. It was a train wreck. Your reputation is damaged, the project is rejected, and the executives are deeply unimpressed. Do not hold back. Imagine the sting of this failure as vividly as you can. You must fully commit to this imagined reality for the exercise to work. Step 2. The autopsy of disaster. Now that you have established the fact of this catastrophic failure, your task is to become a detective. You must figure out what happened. Ask yourself this question. We failed completely. What were all the possible reasons why? For the next 10 to 15 minutes, brainstorm and write down every single reason, big and small, that could have contributed to this disaster. Do not filter. Do not judge. Let your negativity bias, for once, work for you. Unleash your inner worrier and let it run wild. Your list might look something like this. Technology failures. The projector bulb burned out. The laptop crashed. The Wi-Fi failed and I couldn't access my cloud-based demo. The microphone screeched with feedback or died completely. Content failures. My key argument was based on a flawed piece of data that an executive spotted immediately. I ran out of time and had to skip my most important slides. I couldn't answer a tough, critical question about the budget. My slides were confusing and poorly designed. Personal failures. I was visibly nervous and my voice trembled. I forgot a crucial part of my speech. I spoke too quickly. I didn't connect with the audience. I just read my slides. I was thrown off by a hostile or bored-looking person in the front row. External factors. The meeting started late and my time was cut in half. A key decision-maker had to leave for an emergency in the middle of my presentation. A fire alarm went off. The room was freezing cold and uncomfortable. Generate as long and as detailed a list as you possibly can. The more potential points of failure you can identify, the more bulletproof you can become. Step 3. Forging your if-then armor. This is where the true alchemy happens. You will now transform that list of fears into a tactical playbook. You will go through your list one item at a time, and for each potential problem, you will create a specific pre-planned response. You will use the structure of an if-then plan. This is a concept from the psychologist Peter Gollwitzer, and it is a powerful way to automate your desired behavior. The formula is simple. If X happens, then I will do Y. Let's apply it to our list of potential failures. If the projector fails, then I will calmly say, "It seems we have a technical glitch, but it's no problem," and I will immediately begin distributing the full-page printouts of my key slides that I brought as a backup. If my laptop crashes, then I will use the USB drive I have in my pocket, which has a copy of the presentation, and load it onto the company's computer. If an executive asks a hostile question about the budget that I can't answer, then I will use the line, "That's an excellent and detailed question. To give you the most accurate answer, I'd like to consult the full financial model and get back to you and the team by the end of the day. For now, let's look at the top-line projections on the next slide. Your mind is trying to convince you that you are powerless. In the blinding flash of an amygdala hijack, in that rush of heat and a racing heart, your prefrontal cortex, the seat of your identity, your reason, your control, is shoved aside. A primal fear takes the throne, and the story it tells you is one of impending doom. You are trapped, it whispers, a prisoner inside a malfunctioning biological machine that is spiraling out of control. It convinces you that your only hope is to use your thoughts to somehow wrestle this beast back into its cage. And so you try. You plead with yourself. Calm down. Just calm down. Get it together. Think logically. And it never works. Telling yourself to calm down when you are in a state of panic is like shouting politely at a Category 5 hurricane. It is like trying to reason with a smoke alarm that is blaring at 3 in the morning. The part of your brain that you are addressing, your rational prefrontal cortex, is not the part that is currently in control of the vehicle. The CEO has been locked out of the building. The security guard is running the show. And that guard doesn't speak the language of logic, reason, or gentle reassurance. It speaks in the ancient, visceral language of the body, the language of heartbeats, of breath, of muscle tension, of raw, unfiltered sensation. To continue trying to use thought to fix a problem that has temporarily shut down your thinking apparatus is the definition of insanity. It is a strategy doomed to fail, and each failure reinforces the terrifying belief that you are truly powerless. It deepens the trauma of the hijack, making you even more fearful of the next time it happens. You become trapped in a cognitive prison, rattling the bars with your thoughts, while the key to the cell door has been in your hands the entire time. That key is your body. For too long, we have treated the body as a passive victim in the drama of stress, a mere stage upon which the mind's anxieties play out. We feel the consequences of stress in our bodies, and we resent it for its trembling hands and thundering heart. But this is a profound and debilitating misunderstanding. Your body is not the stage, it is an active participant in the play. It is not just a readout of your mental state, it is a control panel. It is a physical, tangible lever that you can grasp and pull to directly and immediately change your neurological state. This is the principle of somatic control. It is the science of using your physical self to influence your mental and emotional self. It is founded on the undeniable biological fact that the communication between your brain and body is not a one-way street. It is a constant, bi-directional feedback loop. Yes, your anxious brain can send signals down to your body to make your heart race, but, and this is the secret that will change everything for you, your body can send signals up to your brain to tell it that it is safe, secure, and in command. If I notice my voice is trembling, then I will pause, take a sip of water, take one silent physiological sigh, and plant my feet firmly on the ground before I continue. If my time gets cut in half, then I will immediately switch to my pre-prepared 10-minute version of the presentation, which focuses only on the executive summary and the final recommendation. Do you feel the power shift that is happening here? You are transforming vague, terrifying worries into a concrete set of operational procedures. Each if-then plan is a pre-packaged solution, a ready-made response that you can deploy instantly without having to think, panic, or improvise. So what is happening inside your brain as you do this? You are performing one of the most sophisticated functions of your prefrontal cortex, strategic, proactive planning. And you are doing it in a state of complete calm long before the pressure hits. When you are in a high-stress situation and the unexpected occurs, your prefrontal cortex begins to shut down. Its capacity for creative, in-the-moment problem-solving is severely diminished by the flood of cortisol. This is why you freeze up. However, your brain is exceptionally good at recognizing patterns and executing pre-learned routines, even under stress. An if-then plan is a preloaded routine. You have created a strong neural pathway that links a specific trigger, the problem, to a specific action, the solution. When the trigger occurs, your brain doesn't have to engage in a slow, effortful, and likely to fail process of figuring out what to do. It simply recognizes the if part of the pattern and automatically serves up the then part of the action. It's the difference between having to write a complex piece of code while your computer is on fire versus simply having to press a single key that runs a pre-written script. By conducting a pre-mortem, you are essentially preloading your rational brain with a whole library of these scripts. You have taken the amygdala's favorite weapons, surprise and uncertainty, and you have rendered them harmless. The unexpected is no longer unexpected. The uncertain has been planned for. When the projector dies, your amygdala may still send up a small flare of alarm, but your prefrontal cortex will immediately override it, saying, "I've seen this. I know what to do. Execute Plan B17." The feeling is not one of panic, but of a strange, powerful calm. It's the feeling of being prepared. This practice is the ultimate confidence builder because it is not based on blind optimism or affirmations. It is confidence that is forged in the fires of strategic pessimism. You are not confident because you believe nothing will go wrong. You are confident because you know that you are equipped to handle it if it does. This is how you become the calm storm. You do not achieve this state by avoiding challenges or by hoping they will be easy. You achieve it by respecting the power of the storm and meticulously preparing for its every feature. You map the winds, you chart the currents, and you reinforce the hull of your ship. You walk into the hurricane not with fear, but with a quiet, steely resolve, armed with a playbook for every possibility. The pressure is still there, the stakes are still high, but you are no longer a fragile vessel at the mercy of the waves. You are the seasoned captain who has already navigated this tempest 100 times in your mind, and you are ready for anything. When the front door of your mind is barred shut by the amygdala, your body provides a back door. It offers a secret entrance, a way to bypass the chaos of your thoughts and speak directly to the ancient, non-verbal parts of your brain in the language they understand. In this chapter, you will learn how to use this lever. You will be given a toolkit of physiological hacks, simple, powerful, and scientifically grounded physical actions that can halt a stress spiral in seconds and build profound resilience over time. You are about to stop shouting at the hurricane and learn how to change the weather. Physiological hack number 1, the vagus nerve and the master switch of calm. Our first and most immediate tool involves activating your body's own built-in braking system. Deep within you, there is a physical structure that acts as the master switch for calm, and you can learn to operate it on demand. We're talking about the vagus nerve. Picture your autonomic nervous system as the control system of a high-performance car. The sympathetic nervous system is the accelerator pedal. When the amygdala perceives a threat, it floors that pedal, sending you hurtling into the fight or flight response. The parasympathetic nervous system is the brake pedal. Its job is to slow the car down, to bring it back to a calm, controlled idle, the state of rest and digest. The vagus nerve is the single most important component of this braking system. The word vagus comes from the Latin for wandering, and this nerve is aptly named. It is a massive superhighway of nerve fibers that wanders from your brainstem down, branching out to connect with and regulate nearly all of your major organs: your larynx, your esophagus, your lungs, your heart, your stomach, your intestines. It is the physical embodiment of the mind-body connection. And most importantly, about 80% of the traffic on this superhighway is flowing upward from your brain to your brain. Your organs are constantly sending status updates to your brain via this nerve. When your body is in a state of high alert, the messages flying up the vagus nerve are frantic and panicked, telling your brain to maintain the state of emergency. To get calm, you need to change the content of those messages. You need to use your body to send a new report, a message that says, "All clear, the threat has passed, stand down." The fastest and most efficient way to do this is through your breath, specifically by using the physiological sigh, which we introduced as a way to create the gap. Now, I want you to understand it as a precision tool for vagal nerve stimulation. When you perform that double inhale followed by a long, extended exhale, you are performing a mechanical manipulation of your own anatomy. The long, slow exhale increases the pressure within your chest and diaphragm, which physically tones or massages the vagus nerve endings located there. This action sends a powerful braking signal directly to your brain's control center. Your brain immediately responds by releasing acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that acts like a natural tranquilizer, literally lowering your heart rate and dissolving the physical sensations of panic. This is not a maybe. This is not a placebo. This is a hardwired reflex. You are flipping a biological switch. The next time you feel the first stirrings of a hijack, I want you to see this tool not just as a breathing exercise, but as a direct act of neurological intervention. You are reaching into your own chest and manually applying the brakes. 1 to 3 cycles can be enough to stop a full-blown panic attack in its tracks. It is the most powerful first response tool in your entire arsenal. Master it. Practice it when you are calm so it becomes second nature when you are not. It is your emergency stop button. Physiological hack number 2. The posture of power. Now, let's address the more subtle, chronic signals your body is sending to your brain all day long. Think about what happens to your physical form when you feel stressed, defeated, or intimidated. You shrink. Your shoulders slump and round forward. Your head juts down and forward. You might cross your arms or legs, subconsciously creating a shield. You make yourself physically smaller, a posture of defense and submission. This is an ancient, instinctual response. But remember the bidirectional loop. This posture is not just a result of your feelings, it is also a cause of them. As you hold this contracted, defensive posture, your body is sending a continuous stream of information up to your brain that says, "We are under threat. We are weak. Stay on high alert." You are physically embodying the state of powerlessness, which in turn instructs your brain to continue producing the neurochemistry of powerlessness. We can sever this feedback loop. We can use our bodies to tell our brains a different story. This is the science of embodied cognition, and your tool for applying it is the power pose. Pioneered by researchers like Amy Cuddy, a power pose is any posture that is open, expansive, and takes up space. Think of the classic superhero stance, feet planted wide, chest out, hands on hips. Or picture a victorious athlete crossing the finish line, arms raised high in a V shape, head tilted back in triumph. These are universal expressions of pride and power. By consciously choosing to hold one of these postures, you are choosing to embody a state of confidence, and your brain cannot help but listen. Here's the workout. Before any situation that you anticipate will be stressful, a meeting, an interview, a performance, find 2 minutes of privacy. Go into a bathroom stall, an empty office, or even an elevator. And for 120 seconds, you are going to hold a power pose. Stand tall, spread your feet apart, pull your shoulders back and down, lift your chin, and either place your hands firmly on your hips or stretch them out wide. As you hold the pose, breathe deeply. Feel yourself taking up space. Feel the physical sensation of expansion and stability. The original research suggested that just 2 minutes of this could increase levels of testosterone, the hormone of confidence and assertiveness, and decrease levels of cortisol, the hormone of stress. While the exact hormonal mechanism is debated, the psychological and neurological impact is undeniable. You are breaking your habitual physical pattern of stress and replacing it with a pattern of power. This practice is a form of physiological priming. You are sending a powerful, non-verbal message to your own brain that directly contradicts the narrative of fear and anxiety. The amygdala might be whispering, "This is scary, we should hide." But your body, grounded and expansive, is shouting back, "I am not threatened. I am in command." It is an act of defiance against your own fear instincts. It is you using the lever of your body to physically shift your mind into a more confident and resourceful state before you even enter the arena. You are not faking it until you make it. You are embodying it until you become it. Physiological hack number 3, the forge of resilience. Deliberate cold exposure. Our final tool is the most advanced and perhaps the most transformative. The previous hacks are for managing stress in the moment. This hack is for systematically training your entire nervous system to become fundamentally more resilient to stress over time. It is about moving from defense to a powerful, proactive offense. We are going to enter the forge, and that forge is cold. What is the single most terrifying aspect of an amygdala hijack? It's the feeling of the adrenaline rush, that sudden, violent physiological explosion that feels like a total loss of control. We only ever experience this sensation during moments of genuine chaos and high stakes, so our brains have built a powerful, traumatic association between the feeling of adrenaline and the experience of panic. What if you could break that association? What if you could, in a safe and controlled environment, deliberately trigger that adrenaline response and practice staying calm and clear-headed right in the middle of it? This is exactly what you do when you engage in deliberate cold exposure. When you step into a cold shower or plunge your face into a basin of ice water, you are delivering a profound but harmless shock to your system. Your skin's cold receptors instantly send a massive volley of alarm signals to your brain. Your brain, in turn, does exactly what it's designed to do. It hits the panic button. You experience a sympathetic nervous system response. You gasp for air, your heart rate spikes, and your adrenal glands release a huge surge of adrenaline and norepinephrine. It is, in essence, a self-induced, perfectly controlled stress response. And now, here in the forge, the real training begins. Your instinct is to panic, to tense up, to hyperventilate. But you will do the opposite. You will bring your conscious mind to the party. You will use your tools. You will focus on executing long, slow exhales. You will perform physiological sighs. You will consciously relax your shoulders. You will tell yourself, "This is just a physical sensation. I am safe. I am in control." In this moment, you are doing something remarkable. You are teaching your prefrontal cortex how to maintain top-down control over your primitive panic circuitry, even while that circuitry is screaming at maximum volume. You are separating the physiological sensation of adrenaline from the psychological narrative of panic. You are feeling the full force of the storm, but you are consciously practicing being the calm eye at its center. The first few times you do this, it will be incredibly difficult. You may only last for 15 seconds. That's a victory. The goal is not endurance. The goal is to practice regaining control of your mind and breath in the face of a powerful physical stressor. Over time, something amazing will happen. Your tolerance will increase. A 60-second cold blast that once felt like a life-threatening emergency will start to feel invigorating. The neuroplasticity of this practice is life-changing. You are fundamentally rewiring your relationship with stress and arousal. You are building new neural pathways that link the feeling of adrenaline not with panic, but with focused calm. The next time you experience an unexpected adrenaline rush in a real-world high-stakes situation, your brain will not default to the old panic program. A new, stronger program will be available. Your brain will recognize the sensation and think, "Oh, this feeling, I know this. This is the cold shower feeling. I have been here dozens of times before, and I know how to stay in control." You have robbed the physical sensation of its terror. You have transformed it from an unfamiliar monster into a familiar training partner. This is the very essence of becoming anti-fragile. You are not just resisting stress. You are using a controlled dose of a stressor to make your entire system stronger, calmer, and more capable. Your body is your anchor in the storm of life. It is your most reliable tool, your most direct connection to the ancient machinery of your own mind. Stop trying to think your way out of panic. Instead, breathe your way out, stand your way out, embrace the challenge, and train your way out. You are not a disembodied consciousness, a ghost in the machine. You are an integrated, powerful biological system. And by learning to master the levers of your own physiology, you are finally taking your rightful place in the driver's seat. Here is Chapter 8. Everyone gets hit by the storm. It is the one great, unavoidable truth of a life lived with ambition and purpose. The pressure will mount, the plan will falter, the outcome will be the opposite of what you intended. The wave will crash over you. In that moment of stinging, gasping failure, when you are left with the wreckage of your efforts, you are faced with the single most important question of your life. Do you break? Do you, with great effort, manage to piece yourself back together and bounce back to where you started? Or do you discover the secret of the greatest performers, warriors, and leaders in history and learn how to bounce forward? Think about the word failure. What does it conjure for you? For most of us, it is a word wrapped in shame, a final verdict delivered by a merciless judge. It feels like a brand, a permanent stain on our record that proves once and for all the quiet fear we've always held, that we are not good enough. When we fail under pressure, we treat the event not as an outcome but as an identity. The project didn't fail, I failed. The presentation wasn't a failure, I am a failure. This interpretation is the most insidious lie your mind has ever told you. It is a story whispered to you by your ancient, threat-obsessed brain, a story reinforced by a culture that worships success and hides its mistakes. Believing this lie is the reason why failure is so devastating. It's why a single setback can send us into a spiral of self-recrimination and doubt that lasts for days, weeks, or even years. This all-or-nothing mindset, this belief that every performance is a referendum on your fundamental worth, creates a state of profound psychological fragility. It builds a version of confidence that is like a magnificent but brittle tower of glass. It is beautiful to behold when the sun is shining and the winds are calm, but at the first unexpected gust, the first stray projectile of criticism or failure, the entire structure shatters into a million pieces. And what is the result of living inside this glass tower? You start to play small. You become terrified of the storm. You stop taking risks. You avoid the very challenges that are necessary for your growth because the potential pain of shattering is too great to bear. Your fear of failure becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, ensuring that you never stray far enough from your comfort zone to achieve anything truly remarkable. Your amygdala, seared by the memory of past shatters, becomes hyper-vigilant, tagging every ambitious new idea, every daunting project with a bright red danger label. You become trapped in a cycle of avoidance and fear, your vast potential locked away behind the prison walls of your own fragility. Today, we're going to demolish that prison. You are about to learn that resilience is not what you think it is. It is not about building thicker glass walls. It's not about being tough, about gritting your teeth and enduring the pain. True, lasting resilience is not about bouncing back to your original shape. That is the resilience of a rubber ball. You are not a rubber ball. You are a living, breathing, adaptive system. True resilience is the process of being transformed by the impact. It is the biological, metabolic process of using the force of the blow, the shock of the setback, and the data from the failure as the raw material for your own evolution. It is about bouncing forward, ensuring that every time you are knocked down, you get up stronger, smarter, and more capable than you were before. To grasp this concept, we must introduce a new word into your vocabulary, a word coined by the scholar and risk analyst Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Our world is obsessed with the idea of being robust. We want robust systems, robust economies, robust confidence. But what does robust mean? It means something can withstand a shock and stay the same. A stone wall is robust. You can hit it with a sledgehammer and it remains a stone wall. It resists the force. This sounds good, but it is not the model for a living system. Because if you hit that stone wall hard enough, it doesn't bend, it shatters. It goes from perfect to pulverized in an instant. This is the glass tower of confidence. Now consider the opposite of fragile. Most people would say the opposite is robust, but Taleb argues this is incorrect. The opposite of a system that is weakened by shock is a system that is strengthened by it. This is anti-fragility. Think not of a stone wall, but of the human immune system. Exposing it to a small, controlled dose of a virus, a vaccine, does not break it. It forces the system to learn, adapt, and build new capabilities, making it stronger and more prepared for future attacks. Think of a weightlifter's muscle. To make it grow, the lifter must systematically stress and damage it, lifting a heavy weight until the muscle fibers tear on a microscopic level. It is in the process of repairing this damage that the muscle grows back thicker and stronger than before. The stressor is not an unfortunate side effect, it is the entire point. The damage is the signal for growth. This is the new model for your mind. Your goal is not to become a person who is unaffected by failure. Your goal is to become a person who is improved by it. You are to treat every setback, every mistake, every unexpected failure not as a verdict, but as a vaccine. You are to see it not as a wound, but as a workout. It is the stimulus, the raw data, the precious, painful, and absolutely essential ingredient for your own post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth, PTG, is a well-documented psychological phenomenon where people who experience significant adversity and trauma often report profound positive changes in their lives afterward. They develop deeper relationships, a greater appreciation for life, a stronger sense of personal strength, and new spiritual depth. The trauma becomes a catalyst for a level of growth they would never have otherwise experienced. And while we are not talking about life-shattering traumas, the principle scales down. Every failure, every mini-trauma of pressure contains the seed of this same powerful, transformative growth. You just need to learn how to cultivate it. You need a system, a reliable, repeatable process for metabolizing your failures and extracting every last drop of fuel from them. What follows is that system. It is your 4-step resilience equation for bouncing forward. Step 1. Administer emotional first aid, radical self-compassion. When you fail, your body is in a state of alarm. Your amygdala is firing, your system is flooded with cortisol, and your brain is registering a significant social and emotional threat. In this moment, your default programming, drilled into you by years of conditioning, is to launch a second attack on yourself. Your inner critic comes out, sword flashing. You're an idiot. How could you have missed that? You always mess this up. You're a fraud. This self-criticism is the psychological equivalent of pouring salt into a fresh wound. Neurologically, it is a disaster. Self-criticism is a form of self-attack, which your brain interprets as a further threat, keeping your amygdala activated and your cortisol levels high. It locks you into a shame-based stress spiral that makes learning or rational thinking impossible. The first step in metabolizing failure is not analysis, it is healing. You must interrupt the cycle of self-attack with the powerful antidote of self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff, a leading researcher in this field, defines self-compassion as having 3 core components. When you stumble, you must consciously practice them. Self-kindness. Treat yourself with the same care and kindness you would offer a dear friend who had just failed. You would never say to them, "You're an idiot." You would say, "That was so tough. It's okay. You did your best." Turn this voice inward. Mentally, or even out loud, say to yourself, "This hurts. This was a painful experience, and it's okay to feel disappointed." This simple act soothes your threat circuitry. Common humanity. Remind yourself that failure is a fundamental part of the shared human experience. Your inner critic tells you that you are uniquely flawed. Common humanity is the counter-narrative. Tell yourself, all successful people have failed. Everyone I admire has felt this way. This is part of the journey, not a sign of my personal defectiveness. This breaks the isolating grip of shame. Mindfulness. Acknowledge your painful feelings without over-identifying with them. Don't suppress them, but also don't let them consume you. Observe them with a bit of distance. There is a feeling of disappointment present. I am noticing a wave of embarrassment. This non-judgmental observation prevents you from being swept away by the emotion. Practicing this is a biological intervention. Self-kindness and the feeling of common humanity are thought to trigger the release of oxytocin, the tend and befriend hormone, which is a powerful downregulator of the amygdala and a direct antidote to cortisol. You are not being soft. You are performing a necessary act of emotional regulation to get your prefrontal cortex back online so that you can move on to the next step. You must stabilize the patient before you can conduct the autopsy. Step 2. Conduct the objective autopsy. Separate identity from outcome. Once the emotional storm has been quieted by self-compassion, you can approach the failure with the cool, detached curiosity of a scientist or a detective. The goal here is to deconstruct what happened, but with one critical rule. You must separate your actions and strategies from your identity and worth. It was not you that failed, it was the approach that failed. This separation is everything. Take out a piece of paper and answer these questions with as much brutal honesty and objectivity as you can muster. What was the exact outcome? State the facts without emotional language. We lost the client. Not, I completely blew it and lost our biggest client. What was my original plan or strategy? Lay out your intentions and the steps you plan to take. What actually happened? Write a chronological, factual account of the event. What factors were within my control? E.g., the amount I prepared, the way I delivered the opening, the data I chose to present. What factors were outside of my control? E.g., a key decision maker was in a terrible mood, a competitor made an unexpected move, a market shift. This step is crucial for assigning proper responsibility and avoiding blame for things you couldn't have influenced. Where was the single biggest gap between my plan and the reality? Pinpoint the critical moment or decision where things went off track. This process forces your prefrontal cortex to engage in high-level analysis. It pulls you out of the primitive, emotional blame game of the limbic system and into a state of objective inquiry. You are shifting from seeing the failure as a reflection of who you are to seeing it as a complex event with multiple contributing variables. You are turning a source of shame into a source of data. Step 3. Extract the actionable lesson. Find the gold. An autopsy that only finds the cause of death is a tragedy. An autopsy that reveals a hidden genetic marker that can save the rest of the family is a breakthrough. This is the goal of Step 3. You must sift through the data from your autopsy and find the single most valuable piece of gold. You are looking for the lesson, the rule, the updated mental model that this failure has taught you. The key is to make this lesson concrete and actionable. A bad lesson is vague and self-critical. I need to do better next time. A good lesson is a specific, strategic directive. In future negotiations, I will never present my final offer until I have fully understood the other party's primary constraints. Before any major technical demo, I must have a fully tested, non-internet-dependent backup plan. When I receive critical feedback, my first response will be to pause, take a breath, and say thank you for that perspective before I formulate a reply. Write this new rule down. Frame it as an upgrade to your personal operating system. Failure is the price you pay for a valuable software update. This lesson is what transforms the experience from a net loss into a net gain. This is the mechanism of bouncing forward. You are now more capable, more knowledgeable, and more strategically sound than you were before the failure. The person who stood up is not the same person who was knocked down. They are an improved version 2.0. Step 4. Plan your re-engagement. Get back in the arena. The final step is perhaps the most crucial for your long-term psychology. After a failure, your brain's natural instinct is to retreat and avoid similar situations in the future. This is how phobias are born. You must consciously override this instinct. You must get back in the game quickly and strategically to prove to your amygdala that the threat is not permanent and that you are now better equipped to handle it. Based on the lesson you just extracted, create a simple, immediate plan of action. If your failure was in a negotiation, schedule a low-stakes negotiation for the following week where you can practice your new rule. If you failed in a presentation, volunteer to give a small, informal presentation to your team to build your confidence back up using your new insights. If you made a mistake that affected a colleague, your first step is to go to that colleague, take full responsibility, and explain the new process you've put in place to ensure it doesn't happen again. This immediate forward-moving action is the final step in the metabolic process. It closes the loop. It signals to your brain that the failure was not an endpoint, but a turning point. It rewires the painful memory of the setback and links it to the positive experience of learning, growth, and renewed competence. This four-step process, emotional first aid, objective autopsy, lesson extraction, and re-engagement, is your equation for resilience. It is your blueprint for building an anti-fragile mind. It is a practice. It will feel unnatural at first, but with every setback you consciously process in this way, you will be forging new neural pathways. You will be tearing down the brittle glass tower of ego-based confidence and replacing it with a deep, embodied, unshakable confidence that is not afraid of the storm, because it knows that the storm is where its strength is forged. You will stop praying for a life without problems and start celebrating the person you are becoming in the process of solving them. You will become the person who runs toward the roar, knowing that on the other side of every failure lies your next evolution. Why have you been fighting a constant, exhausting upstream battle against pressure? You have spent the last 8 chapters forging a new version of yourself. You have learned to face down the saber-toothed tiger in your mind, to rewire the very architecture of your brain, to alchemize fear into fuel, and to metabolize failure into strength. You have done the deep, difficult internal work. You have become a world-class swimmer, powerful and sleek, capable of navigating the most turbulent waters. And yet, day after day, you dive into a raging river that is determined to sweep you away, and you wonder why you end every day feeling utterly exhausted. This is the hidden flaw in a purely internal approach to self-mastery. We dedicate ourselves to upgrading our internal software, our mindset, our resilience, our emotional regulation, but we neglect the corrupted, chaotic hardware we are forcing it to run on, our environment. You can have the most advanced, enlightened operating system in the world, but if you install it on a computer riddled with viruses, clogged with junk files, and constantly overheating, it will crash. And you will blame the software for the failure of the machine. If you have ever had a day where you felt like all your progress was erased, where a single notification sent you spiraling, where a conversation left you drained and defeated, then you have experienced this devastating system crash. You have felt the crushing frustration of taking one step forward with your internal work, only to be shoved 2 steps back by the external world. You return to the very places that make you sick and wonder why you are not healing. You try to meditate in the middle of a battlefield. You try to find your center in a hurricane of your own making. This is not a battle you can win through sheer force of will. The modern world is a relentless 24/7 assault on your attention, your focus, and your peace. Relying on willpower alone to navigate it is like trying to bail out a leaky boat with a thimble. You can bail with heroic effort for a while, but the holes in the hull will ensure that you are always taking on water. Eventually, inevitably, you will tire, and you will sink. The exhaustion you feel is not a sign of your weakness. It is the predictable result of a flawed strategy. You have been playing a game that is rigged against you. Today, we change the game. We are going to stop just bailing water and start plugging the holes. We are going to shift our focus from a purely reactive internal struggle to a proactive external strategy. You are about to discover that you have the power not just to navigate the river, but to change its very course. You are going to stop being a passive victim of your environment and become its conscious, deliberate architect. You will learn to design a personal sanctuary, a physical, digital, and social ecosystem that doesn't just protect you from the storm, but actively cultivates your default state to be one of calm, clarity, and power. This isn't about control, it's about intelligent curation. It's about making poise the path of least resistance. The scientific principle behind this is simple. Your brain is in a constant, dynamic conversation with its surroundings. Every sight, every sound, every social interaction, every digital notification is an input. These inputs create a cumulative effect on your neurochemistry, an effect known as cognitive load. Think of your prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, as having a finite budget of energy and attention each day. A chaotic, cluttered, and demanding environment is like 1,000 tiny expenses being charged against that budget. Each interruption, each distraction, each decision you are forced to make about something trivial places a tax on your mental resources. When you switch your focus from a complex task to check a quick email, your brain doesn't make a clean break. A cognitive shadow, an attention residue, lingers, occupying a piece of your working memory. Your environment of constant distraction is forcing you to operate with a mind that is perpetually fractured, never able to devote its full processing power to the task at hand. This state of chronic partial attention is incredibly draining. It keeps your cortisol levels slightly elevated and weakens the very prefrontal cortex you rely on to manage your emotions and stay in command. You have been living with an invisible hand on your emergency brake, wondering why you can't seem to gain any speed. Environmental design is the act of releasing that brake. It is the understanding that true power lies not in being able to withstand 1,000 tiny cuts, but in creating a world where those cuts rarely happen in the first place. Let's begin the work of the architect, focusing on the 3 critical domains you must redesign. Domain number 1, your digital sanctuary. Your smartphone and your computer are the most powerful tools of connection and productivity ever invented. They are also, without conscious design, the most potent engines of anxiety and distraction in human history. Your digital environment is not a neutral space. It has been meticulously engineered by thousands of the brightest minds in the world with one singular goal: to capture and monetize your attention. Every red notification bubble, every infinite scroll, every auto-playing video is a weapon of mass distraction, precision engineered to trigger a dopamine hit and a jolt of urgency that hijacks your limbic system. Each notification is a manufactured saber-toothed tiger, a false alarm that your amygdala is forced to treat as a real threat. To live with the default settings on your devices is to volunteer for a state of perpetual, low-grade neurological siege. Reclaiming your digital sovereignty is the first and most crucial act of environmental design. The Great Notification Purge. This is your declaration of independence. Right now, I want you to pick up your phone and go into your settings. Your mission is to turn off every single notification, every banner, every sound, every red badge, for every app that is not initiated by a real human being who needs you in a genuine, time-sensitive emergency. Your social media apps? Off. Your news apps? Off. Your email? Off. This will feel radical. It will trigger a fear of missing out. That fear is the proof that the system is working as intended. You are not cutting yourself off from the world. You are choosing to engage with the world on your terms, not on the terms of an algorithm. You will check your email when you decide it's time to check email. You will see who liked your photo when you choose to open the app. You are moving from a push system where the world pushes its demands on you at random to a pull system where you pull information when you are ready for it. This single act will free up an astonishing amount of cognitive bandwidth. The art of batching. Now that you've silenced the alarms, you must create a new system of engagement. This is the practice of batching, grouping similar tasks together and executing them in focused, scheduled blocks. Instead of checking your email 30 times a day, a catastrophic drain on your attention, you will schedule two specific times, say 11 a.m. and 4 p.m., to process your inbox. The rest of the day, your email client remains closed. The same goes for news and social media. Schedule a 15-minute block in the afternoon to catch up. By creating these containers, you create vast, protected oceans of time for what the computer scientist Cal Newport calls deep work. This is the state of uninterrupted concentration where your prefrontal cortex can truly shine, where you produce your best work, solve your hardest problems, and enter a state of flow that is both highly productive and deeply satisfying. Curate your information diet. You would never allow a stranger to walk into your home and scream negativity and outrage at you for hours on end, yet you allow this to happen every day through the screens you consume. The content you ingest directly shapes your baseline neurochemistry. Outrage-driven news and vitriolic social media commentary are junk food for your amygdala, feeding it a steady diet of threat and tribalism. You must become a ruthless curator. Unfollow accounts that consistently make you feel angry or anxious. Mute people who are dedicated to negativity. Consciously seek out and subscribe to thoughtful, nuanced, long-form content that engages your intellect rather than just triggering your emotions. Your mind is a garden. Stop letting others plant weeds in it. Domain number 2, your physical sanctuary. Your brain is constantly scanning your physical surroundings, drawing subconscious conclusions about your safety, your status, and your tasks at hand. A cluttered, disorganized space is not just an aesthetic problem, it is a cognitive one. Every object in your line of sight that is out of place, the pile of papers, the stack of unread books, the day-old coffee mug, sends a silent signal to your brain. Here is a task that is not yet complete. Your physical environment becomes a visual representation of your to-do list, creating a low-level hum of stress and cognitive load that never quite turns off. Designing your physical sanctuary is about sending a different signal, a signal of order, calm, and purpose. The power of a clear surface. Start with your primary workspace. Your desk is not a storage unit. It is an altar for your focus. At the end of every single workday, enact a 5-minute shutdown ritual. Put away papers, wipe down the surface, organize your pens. The goal is to leave your desk as you would want to find it, clear, ordered, and ready for the next day's deep work. This ritual does two things. First, it creates a powerful psychological boundary, signaling to your brain that the workday is over, which helps prevent the stress of your job from bleeding into your personal time. Second, it presents your future self with a gift, an environment of pristine calm, free from the visual noise of yesterday's battles, allowing you to start your most important work with minimal friction. Engineer for flow, not friction. Look at the physical layout of your space. Is it designed to make your desired behaviors easier and your undesired behaviors harder? If you want to read more, is there a comfortable chair with good lighting and a book waiting for you? If you want to check your phone less, is its primary charging spot in another room, not on your nightstand? This is about creating gentle choice architecture. Place a pitcher of water on your desk to encourage hydration. Place your running shoes by the front door. These small environmental cues reduce the activation energy required to start good habits, making it more likely that you will follow through, especially on days when your willpower is low. Inject life and light. Humans have a deep biological connection to the natural world, a concept known as the biophilia hypothesis. We are not designed to live and work in sterile, gray boxes. Introducing elements of nature into your space is a simple but profound physiological hack. If possible, position your desk to get as much natural light as possible. Sunlight exposure is critical for regulating serotonin and maintaining a healthy circadian rhythm. Buy a simple, low-maintenance plant. Studies have shown that even the presence of a single plant in an office can reduce stress and increase productivity. You are giving your ancient brain a signal of life and safety, a quiet subconscious message that all is well. Domain 3, your social sanctuary. The final and most critical layer of your environment is not made of pixels or wood. It is made of people. The quality of your relationships is the single greatest predictor of your long-term happiness and resilience. The people you surround yourself with are not passive bystanders in your life. They are active participants in your neurochemistry. Some people are radiators. They leave you feeling energized, inspired, and seen. They are sources of oxytocin and support. Others are drains. They leave you feeling exhausted, anxious, and diminished, perpetually flooding your system with secondhand cortisol. A core part of designing your sanctuary is becoming a conscious curator of your social energy. Conduct an energy audit. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. Take a moment to mentally scan the people you interact with most frequently, at work, in your family, in your social circles. Without judgment, simply become aware of how you feel after you interact with them. Who consistently lifts you up? Who consistently pulls you down? This awareness is your map. It will show you where you need to invest more of your precious time and where you need to build stronger fences.
Master the art of the boundary. A boundary is not a wall you build to keep people out. It is a line you draw to define your own space, to communicate what you are and are not available for. Boundaries are not acts of aggression. They are acts of profound self-respect and a prerequisite for healthy relationships. For many, this is the hardest skill to learn. Start small. Practice saying, "No, I can't take that on right now," without a long apologetic explanation. Practice saying, "I only have 10 minutes to discuss this before my next commitment." Practice letting someone be wrong without feeling the need to correct them. Each boundary you set is a declaration that your time, your energy, and your mental peace are valuable. It teaches people how to treat you, and more importantly, it teaches your own brain that you are worthy of protection. Schedule connection. In a busy world, deep, meaningful connection rarely happens by accident. Be as intentional about nurturing your most positive relationships as you are about any other project in your life. Schedule a weekly call with your most supportive friend. Book a non-negotiable date night with your partner. Make time for the people who radiate warmth and energy into your life. These positive social interactions are your most powerful buffer against the storms of life. They are the neurological equivalent of a deep charge for your battery, replenishing your reserves of resilience and reminding your ancient nervous system that you are safe, that you belong, and that you are not alone. Designing your sanctuary is not a one-time event. It is a continuous, dynamic practice of mindful curation. It is the ultimate expression of the principles in this book, moving from internal management to external mastery. By taking command of your digital, physical, and social worlds, you reduce the number of upstream battles you have to fight each day. You conserve your precious willpower for the challenges that truly matter. You create an ecosystem where your best self is not an exception you have to fight for, but the default you get to live from. You are no longer just the calm in the center of the storm. You have become the architect of the weather itself. This is not the end of a book. Let us be perfectly clear about that. If you close this cover, place it on your shelf, and feel a momentary sense of satisfaction at having finished it, then we have failed. This was never meant to be a collection of interesting ideas to be passively consumed. It was not designed to be shelf help, an intellectual souvenir of a journey you never truly took. This is not a destination. It is a departure gate. This is the first page of a new story, your story. This is the beginning of a new way of being. You began this journey as a passenger, tossed about in the turbulent cockpit of your own mind. You are at the mercy of an ancient, well-meaning, but hopelessly outdated pilot, your amygdala, a creature hardwired for a world of saber-toothed tigers, not spreadsheets and social pressures. You felt the hijack, the sudden, terrifying lurch of the controls being seized by panic, leaving your rational self a helpless spectator to your own reactions. You felt the consequences of this faulty programming in your frayed nerves, your fractured relationships, and your unfulfilled potential. You knew deep down that you were capable of more, if only you could learn to fly the plane. And so, you stepped into the role of the investigator. You dared to look under the hood of your own consciousness, to study the blueprints of your own mind. You discovered the astonishing principle of neuroplasticity, the double-edged sword that had been carving the architecture of anxiety into your very brain, reinforcing the pathways of fear with every stressful encounter. But in that terrifying revelation, you also found the ultimate source of hope. You learned that the architect of your prison could become the architect of your palace. The force that had been working against you was, in fact, the most powerful tool you could ever possess. You became an apprentice of power. You learned the first principle, mastering the gap. With the simple, profound magic of your own breath, you learned to pry open a space between the world's trigger and your reaction. In that sacred pause, you found your freedom. You began the work of the architect, consciously flipping the neuroplasticity switch. You wielded your attention like a spotlight, starving the old pathways of worry and paving new superhighways to calm and focus. You practiced the alchemy of arousal, learning the stunning truth that the leaden feeling of anxiety and the golden feeling of excitement were born of the same raw physical energy. You learned to stop fighting the storm of your own arousal and instead to relabel it, to bless it, and to channel it into peak performance. You became a strategist, a warrior of the mind. You abandoned the fragile strategy of hope and adopted the Stoic's armor of the pre-mortem, facing down your fears in advance to render them powerless in the moment. You discovered that your body was not a passive victim, but a powerful lever, a control panel for your own nervous system, and you learned the somatic hacks to command it. You redefined resilience, rejecting the brittle model of bouncing back and embracing the anti-fragile power of bouncing forward, learning to metabolize every failure into fuel. And finally, you became the designer of your own world, a curator of your physical, digital, and social sanctuaries, creating an ecosystem that made your highest self the default, not the exception. You now hold all the keys. You have the knowledge, the tools, and the understanding. But knowledge that is not applied is merely a rumor. A tool that is left in the box is just a piece of metal. The final and most crucial step of this journey is to bridge the chasm between knowing what to do and consistently, automatically doing it. It is the process of taking these powerful, discrete techniques and weaving them into the very fabric of your daily life, until they are no longer things you do, but the very essence of who you are. This is where most people fail. They are inspired for a day, a week. They try a technique, it works, and they feel a surge of confidence. But then the inertia of old habits pulls them back. Life gets busy, and the new practices are the first things to be discarded. They are seen as a chore, another item on an already overwhelming to-do list. And slowly, the old architecture begins to reassert itself. The jungle of anxiety begins to reclaim the new paths you have cleared. We will not allow this to happen to you. The solution is not to try harder. The solution is to build a system. A simple, elegant, non-negotiable protocol that is so easy and so effective that it becomes an indispensable act of mental hygiene, as automatic and essential as brushing your teeth. It is a system that requires a small investment of time but pays a massive dividend in a lifetime of poise and power. This is your Calm Storm Protocol. It is your daily practice. It will be the engine of your new identity. The protocol requires just 15 minutes of your day, broken into 3 5-minute blocks. The rule is consistency over intensity. A short practice done daily is infinitely more powerful than a long practice done sporadically. Each block is designed to strategically manage your neurochemistry and reinforce your new wiring at the most critical junctures of your day. The morning ignition, 5 minutes. This is the most important 5 minutes of your day. How you begin your morning sets the neurological and emotional tone for the next 16 hours. For most people, the morning begins with a jolt of cortisol as they are ripped from sleep by an alarm, immediately followed by grabbing their phone and flooding their brain with a chaotic stream of emails, news, and social media notifications. This is an act of neurological self-sabotage. It is starting your day by immediately handing the controls over to your amygdala. Your practice will be the opposite. It will be a conscious act of priming your mind for calm, focused, proactive engagement. Minutes 1 to 2, neurological reset. Before you check your phone, before you drink your coffee, sit on the edge of your bed or in a comfortable chair. Your first action will be to perform 5 cycles of the physiological sigh. Double inhale through the nose, long, slow, extended exhale through the mouth. With each cycle, you are performing a manual override of your nervous system. You are flushing out residual carbon dioxide, stimulating your vagus nerve, and sending a powerful signal from your body to your brain that says, "We are safe, we are calm, we are in control." You are consciously choosing to start your day in a parasympathetic state of rest and digest, not a sympathetic state of fight or flight. Minutes 3 to 5, mental rehearsal. Now that your mind is in a calm, receptive state, you will perform the calm rehearsal. Close your eyes and quickly visualize the day ahead of you. See the major events, the important meeting, the difficult conversation, the focused work session. But you will not visualize them with apprehension. You will see them through the lens of your highest self. See yourself moving through each event with poise, clarity, and grace. Feel the feeling of calm confidence in your body. See yourself handling an unexpected challenge smoothly and effectively. You are not predicting the future. You are pre-paving the neural pathways for success. You are giving your brain its marching orders for the day, providing it with a script of competence to follow, making your desired state the most familiar and accessible option when the pressure hits. The midday reframe, 5 minutes. By the middle of the day, your cognitive budget is depleted. You have been exposed to dozens of stressors, distractions, and demands. Your cortisol levels are naturally rising. This is the time when reactivity is highest, when you are most likely to make a poor decision or snap at a colleague. The midday reframe is your scheduled reset, a conscious moment to pull yourself out of the reactive current and back to your center. Set a recurring silent alarm on your phone for some time between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. When it goes off, this is your signal to step away. Minutes 1 through 3, sensory grounding. Step away from your desk. If you can, go outside. If not, just stand up. You will perform the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. Deliberately notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This is not a trivial exercise. It is a powerful neurological pattern interrupt. You are forcibly pulling your brain's attention out of the looping, abstract narratives of stress. "I'm so behind, that meeting was terrible," and anchoring it in the undeniable, non-threatening reality of the present moment. You are changing the channel from the amygdala's broadcast of panic to the neocortex's broadcast of calm sensory data. Minutes 4 through 5, gratitude injection. Now that you are present, you will directly combat the negativity bias that has been accumulating all morning. Quickly, either mentally or by jotting it in a notebook, identify 2 or 3 good things that have happened so far in your day, no matter how small. The sun is shining. I finished that first report. My coffee tasted great this morning. This simple act is a targeted intervention. It forces your brain to switch from its default mode of scanning for threats to a conscious mode of scanning for blessings. It is a jolt of positive neurochemistry that rebalances your perspective and refuels your emotional reserves for the rest of the afternoon. The evening integration, 5 minutes. How you end your day determines the quality of your recovery and the state of your mind when you wake up the next morning. Most people end their day by staring into a screen, marinating their brains in stimulating blue light and often negative content, and then collapse into bed with their minds still racing with the day's unresolved problems. This is a recipe for poor sleep and a stressed awakening. Your practice will be a conscious process of closing the loops, metabolizing the day's events, and preparing your mind for deep, restorative rest. Minutes 1 through 5, the debrief and download. Before you get into bed, sit with your dedicated journal and a pen. You will perform your 3 good things exercise. Write down 3 things that went well during the day and, crucially, write down why they went well. This is the final, powerful act of rewiring your brain for the positive. But this is also your chance to debrief. If you had a setback or a failure during the day, this is your moment to perform a mini version of the resilience equation. Acknowledge the feeling without judgment, self-compassion. Briefly note what happened and what you learned, the lesson, and then, this is key, consciously give yourself permission to let it go for the night. You are downloading the day's events from your active mental RAM onto the hard drive of the page. This act of closure signals to your brain that it is safe to power down, preventing the late-night rumination that sabotages sleep.
This 15-minute protocol is your practice. It is your non-negotiable commitment to yourself. It is the physical, tangible work of becoming the architect of your own mind. But the protocol itself is not the final goal. The practice is merely the path. The goal is the transformation of your identity. In the beginning, you will be the person who does the Calm Storm protocol. But with each passing day, with each morning ignition and each evening integration, the practice will work its magic on you. The wiring will strengthen. The calm will become more accessible. The poise will become more natural. And one day, you will realize that you are no longer just doing the practice. You have become the practice. You are no longer the person who needs to be reminded to breathe in a crisis, because your baseline state is one of deep, rhythmic breathing. You are no longer the person who has to fight to see the positive, because your brain has been retrained to scan for it automatically. You are no longer the person who is shattered by failure, because your mind immediately sees it as data for growth. This is what it means to be the calm storm. It does not mean you are without emotion or energy. The storm is a force of nature, powerful and dynamic. It has immense energy, but at its center, there is a point of perfect, profound, and powerful stillness. That is you, the eye of the storm. You do not avoid the challenges of life. You move toward them, because you have learned that the winds of pressure that would destroy a lesser structure are the very forces you can harness to power your journey. You are grounded in a core of unshakable calm, a deep internal locus of control that allows you to direct the immense energy of your own arousal and the world around you with grace, purpose, and skill. This is no longer something you do. It is who you are. The world will still be chaotic. The pressure will still come. The storms will still rage. But they will no longer define you, because you have learned the ultimate truth. You are not the weather. You are the sky. Now go. The work has just begun.